Happy Saturday, everyone. Hello.
Saturday.
Happy Saturday, Mario. How's everyone today? Hello. Hey, Carly. Hey, Sue. Scrapbook Central. Gosh, I see people like show up really quick. Hey, Steph. How's it going? How is everyone's weekend? I have no idea what's going on. Hey, Kuber. Hello. Welcome to Asked and Answered. Can you believe it's our 5th one? That's very cool that it is already our 5th one in this series.
I think
hey, Jana. Hey, Nikki. Well,
you.
they always like to answer the questions. That's just how that is. How's everyone today? Good? We're ready. We've got a lot of stuff to, well, I don't know what we're going to cover, actually. This is pretty much up to you. Hello, Frank. Hey, Dee, it really is. If this is your first time at an Asked and Answered live, hey, Sharon. This is just an interactive kind of Q&A. It could be conversational like this. It could include demos if the question needs a demo to explain it. I do have a lot of different things kind of set up and prepped because we are talking about distressed textures today. Hey, P, how are you? And those things take a little bit of time to dry. So we did a lot of preparation just to show you the effects of a lot of these textures. Hello, Marina. Hey, Zoe. Ranger's in the house. Hey, Tifa. So Asked and Answered, this topic, of course, distressed textures. And all I ask is that as we go through this live, try to keep your questions on topic for this one. Like I said, this is our 5th one. We've already done one on distress basics. We've done distress sprays, distress embossing glazes. We've done alcohol ink. So you can go to my YouTube channel. There's a playlist for those as well. So you can check those out if you like this format. But then there's other videos there as well, other lives that we've done. But I think this format's always interesting because, I know what I like to share, and I do have things that I'm going to share regardless, which are questions that people have asked, throughout the months, years, weeks, whatever we get. But also throughout this live, it does give you the chance to ask your questions. So, hi, Mario. Boy, his entrance is getting different. Oh, look at your glasses. Respects. Cool. I like them. Yeah, I have a pair of those.
Happy Saturday.
Yeah, it was cool to see you in those.
You're ready to go.
Thank you.
Everything's good.
Thanks. It's good. We have done a lot of texturing.
Oh my gosh,
we had a lot of stuff, but
we did so many swatches.
Yeah, but that's the fun part because I hope when you see this live, you really understand what you can do with these textures and mediums, and we have some new ones that we just launched Monday, so it's good. We're ready to get started. Hello to everyone. Mario, as always, if there's questions, just fire away and
send them over.
I'll do my best to answer if I can. I don't really need to switch cameras at this point. Well, I will.
Are you supposed to stand here and
I will just to get started. I may come back to this one, but I'll at least get something going. So hello to everyone. Hey, Alan from Ranger. Hey, Julie. See Ted from Stampers Anonymous. Hey, Boo. All right, let's go. So I put all the textures out on the tray, and in the distress world, we kind of talk about this category as textures/mediums. It really just depends on how you kind of look at things because, it's just the kind of catch-all category, distress mediums, because we have all sorts of different things in that category. But in particular, I wanted to talk about textures today, things that will provide a texture and help you understand really what you can achieve or why we have so many different ones, because when you look at them, there's a lot. So the top row here are texture paste, what we call texture paste. And that really is, well, what it is. It is a texturized paste. And there's different effects. And each of these labels, I don't even remember how many years ago it was that we've revised all the labels for the packaging for these mediums. But what's great about it is that the top label usually quickly identifies what it is. So for example, texture paste opaque. It is opaque matte paste, ideal for creating dimensional effects. So it kind of gives you just a little idea of what it is, but I'm also going to show you swatches so you get a visual. But in texture paste, we have opaque, we have translucent, we have black opaque, we have sparkle, which this was actually launched last year as a seasonal, and because it was so popular, it's now part of the everyday. And then we have this new one. This is twinkle, and I'll go through today the distinct differences between sparkle and twinkle. This right now is currently seasonal. We just launched it for the season. However, this one was also seasonal, and people always ask, well, what decides whether it's seasonal or every day? It's really you guys, the support from you guys. If you like something and you like it enough that Ranger deems that it's okay to keep around all the time, that it could become every day, which I would hope, because when you see twinkle, I think there is a place for both of these. So that's texture paste in the top row. Then we go into grit, and grit we have opaque, translucent. Then we have some seasonal ones. That is Crypt and Glow. These are in fact seasonal. These come out for Halloween time. They were just re-released this year. Then we have Snowfall. That comes out for the winter season, but all of these were released this month. And then we have Crackle Paste, Opaque and Translucent, a Crackle Paint. We actually used to have a whole line of Crackle Paint. Now we only have Translucent because you can color it with Distress Paint. And then we have Collage Medium. Now we're also going to get into the dry stuff. So before I get into the swatches, let me just bring in this because, well, I want to show it. And then honestly, I want to get it out of my way because I don't trust myself with it. But in the Distress Mediums line, we also have these accents, these elements, if you will, and that would be Rock Candy Glitter. That's going to be Mica Flakes, the new Snowflakes, and I'll show you and talk about that, and Frosted Crystal. So let's go through each one, and I put this here so I can kind of hold the little dish a little higher for you to see. So we'll first talk about Rock Candy. Rock Candy has been in the line for over 10 years. This is a clear glitter. It's just like sugar. It is not a glitter that becomes airborne. It's not mylar. It's not metallic. It's just really beautiful. I see the questions already where Nancy's like, please explain the differences. I will go through all the differences. That's the whole point of Asked and Answered, which is going to be really so you guys can understand and see the differences. But first, I want to just give you an overview so you know maybe what you want to ask about. So Rock Candy, as I mentioned, a clear glitter. This has different particle sizes. So there's 3 different particle sizes in here. I thought it was always 5, but it's really 3. They're fine particle sizes, but this gives a nice sugary finish to so many different things. Then we have Mica Flakes, and Mica Flakes, this is a synthetic mica. It has such a great vintage vibe, but this is like little fragments, almost looks like glass, but it is translucent, and again, it is synthetic. And then the newest one, this is Snowflakes. This was something that was inspired by a holiday class that I did with Simon Says Stamp last month, and we kind of developed this product for that class, and then it was like, hey, it's so cool, this needs to be part of the everyday seasonal, well, I don't say everyday, let me take that back, part of the seasonal release. So Snowflakes is actually a mix of Rock Candy, Mica Flakes, and it has this really fine kind of iridescent-y glitter. It doesn't pick up well on camera, but for those of you that have it or use it in the class, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's this really fine iridescent, I mean, now it's going to be all over my hands, but it's a sparkle that's really different, or I should say kind of a twinkly look. So you're going to see that now for the rest. And then Frosted Crystal. I do have some stuff prepared for this that maybe if we get to a little later in the demo, but Frosted Crystal is actually an embossing powder. So this isn't something you glue on, it's an embossing powder. But it is a translucent embossing powder for creating matte frosted texture. Very, very cool what you can do with it, all right? So I'm just going to hand this tray off to Mario just so it's, I mean, if I need to bring it back in frame, I will, but I just don't like bowls of stuff here. Thanks, Mario. And now we'll kind of get back into this and I'll bring in the jar so we can really talk about it. So first, let's talk about the textures. Okay, we'll go through the textures first, then we'll go into grit, then we'll go into Crackle, and I'll even talk about Collage Medium if I see the questions, because I know the chat's rolling, and if I don't get to your question, you know, feel free to just ask it again. It's just, I'm busy talking, looking, and reading, okay? So first, let's talk about texture. Texture paste, to me, is the most textural, I would say, in the line. Like, it's gonna have the most dimension. So we'll talk about texture paste opaque. So this goes on, it is white, fluffy, and in fact, opaque, just like the label says. It really is easy to understand if you just read the label, but knowing what you can do with it is what this demo is also going to hopefully achieve. So right now I'm going to go into the properties, and then we can get into the demo as to why those properties are important. So opaque is flexible, but also really fluffy. I mean, it does dry, I'm going to say somewhat rigid, like you could smash it with your fingernail if you wanted to, but it holds its texture really well. However you apply it, be that through a stencil, a palette knife, whatever that is, okay? And it's going to be fluffy. The opaque and the black opaque are the same base. It's just one is white opaque and one is black opaque. So you can see they both have that fluffy, chunky texture. The cool thing about these pastes, these two, okay, the texture paste opaque and texture paste black opaque, is these two pastes are porous, meaning I kind of think of them as like, I don't know, almost like a fluid paper, if you will, meaning this is going to take on, when it dries like this, it will take on the properties very similar to cardstock, meaning I could ink over this, I can spray over this, I can do all types of things over both of these pastes, and it will absorb the colorant. That's very, very unique and very important to remember that you'll see in the demo, because sometimes we want a texture to look like it's part of a background, and other times we want a texture to maybe act as a resist. These two do not work as a resist. They actually absorb. But just like they absorb, they also give it back, because remember I said it's almost like a liquid paper. So the same way like we can add ink to cardstock, like Distress, and you can flick it with water and then take that ink away, you can do the same thing with both of these. Now, you know, obviously the white is going to be better for your translucent dyes, watercolors, things like that. Black is going to be better for, you know, just different things that like maybe have mica in it. So like a Distress Spritz or mica stain or paint or oxide, those would work on that. Then we have Texture Paste Translucent. That kind of falls right in the middle. And Texture Paste Translucent is just what it says, it's translucent. But unlike the Opaque where they talk about being a matte finish, Translucent is a gloss paste. So I think of this one as like a thicker glossy accents, if you will, like a dimensional glossy accents. It dries glossy, but it dries with that texture. Because if you're familiar with glossy accents and you use it and you like fill a little, you know, flower or something on a card, you know that it's dimensional, but it also self-levels. Paste doesn't do that. It kind of has a consistency of yogurt when you apply it. So I love that you can get all of these different effects with a palette knife. And again, when we get into the demo, you'll see just different ways to apply it, okay? So far, so good. So next we'll talk about Texture Paste Sparkle and Twinkle. Now both of these, again on the label, these are translucent gloss. So already we know it's a Texture Paste translucent gloss. So its base is really this paste. It is its base. But the difference with these is this has they both have glitter flecks, but Sparkle has metallic glitter flecks and Twinkle has these iridescent glitter flecks. And that to me is what makes it magical and why we needed both in the line. Okay, so let me just go to those. They're kind of in the back because they're a little thinner. All right, so here is Texture Paste Sparkle, and I'm holding it close to the camera. I know these kind of fade out in the background. That's okay. That's the camera doing it. But you can see what's great about these is that unlike a glitter paste, which would essentially, when you apply it, just becomes completely opaque glitter. And there are many glitter pastes out there, and some people like just that opacity. I wanted a paste that when you applied it, we're still going to be able to see through the back, whether it's over patterned paper, stamped image, whatever that is. And you don't always have to apply it with a palette knife through a stencil. You can use a paintbrush and paint it on. You can use your finger and rub it into things. I know Pollicini like uses that and kind of rubs it into patterned paper and creates beautiful effects. It's also going to give it a shine, a gloss, but these metallic flecks are very cool. Now the glitter in Sparkle is quite unique. It's kind of a platinum-y glitter. And when I say quite unique, it's because, and I hope the camera picks it up, glitters, as you guys know, glitters and all things shiny, it's really a challenge on camera. But what's cool about this platinum glitter is on something, say warm, and I'll just say craft paper being warm, it actually takes on the properties of more of a golden looking glitter, but it's not, it's still platinum. But then on something like black, it takes on the illusion of more of a silver glitter, but it's the same glitter. That's kind of the magic of that color, is that depending on what you put Sparkle paste on, the color of that glitter kind of changes a little bit. When you put it on warmer things, it does look a little bit more golden. And when you put it on cooler things like black or blue or purple, it looks a little bit more silvery. So it's just a really cool paste. But again, the glitter is spread out. It's that whole ratio that I'm so happy that we were able to maintain and achieve, because when you apply it, you're still able to see what's underneath it. And because this paste exists, it's really nice, isn't it? And because this has existed, you can go and see other projects and makes using Sparkle. All right, so why did I want Twinkle? Well, because I loved the idea of this, and quite honestly, when we were working on developing Snowflakes, and I saw that iridescent glitter that was so fine, I'm like, this glitter is very cool. I wonder what it would be like in paste. So we started playing around with the formulation. I'm like, could we just add the glitter to the translucent texture paste and kind of see if we can create something sparkly, but maybe more translucent, which is Twinkly. Now Twinkle has this iridescent glitter, and I'm gonna say that, like, I'm going to just look at my camera to see if you can pick it up. You'll see it on the darker ones, but the glitter is not clear. It looks fairly clear on white. This is what makes this paste so freaking cool. It just twinkles. So it has like these little twinkly elements to it, but just like how I was showing you sparkle, when you put it on different surfaces, it also changes. So if you put it on something darker, it doesn't have to be craft. I'm just showing you basic surfaces, but this could be green, pink. You start noticing colors. And because it's an iridescent glitter, it has different color properties. When you put it on warmer papers, you start to see more of the warmer tones of the iridescent, the pinks, the yellows, the whatevers in there, whatever makes it iridescent and magic. But then when you put it on black, now you're seeing the other iridescent, more of the blues and purples, almost like galaxy. And again, when you see it over things versus just paper, but I love the high gloss as well. And again, this is flexible. It's just really beautiful. But it does show on all three. Again, it's just the camera trying to focus on a fleck. But in real life, you can actually see all the colors on here. But I'll just give you a little better example before we go on to the other one. So when it comes to something like Twinkle, when you apply it over ink, it's going to give you that twinkly finish. And again, I'm not even sure, well, I'll post static photos on the blog so you'll see it.
I can see it.
It's in there, but you can't really appreciate the iridescence of it. That to me is so pretty because this was blended with Distress. So I love the fact that I can still put that paste over it. See that gloss? But now I'm going to get that little iridescent shimmer in there. And then I created another one. This was one that we did when we launched the mini oxides. I'm like, oh, I just want to see what it would look like. Hopefully now this swatch, we'll just see if the light in the camera helps a little bit. There you go. You can see that depending on what color underneath, how that twinkle will change. We're going to get, again, a little bit more of that iridescent blues in the cooler area, and then we get more of those yellows and pinks in the warmer area. It's just, there we go. I'm going to get really close, and I'll just go slow. There, you'll be able to appreciate it now. It's just twinkly. That's all I can say. And if you're not a glitter person, well, there you go. This is not for you. But I love the fact that when you put it on, it does give you a little glitter that's trapped, you know? So again, it's not going to be something that's going to be airborne. Which brings me to the next thing about paste in general. Any kind of texture, it's going to have a shelf life. So if you don't plan on using textures, I would suggest not buying textures. And I'm saying that really in all sincerity as a maker, because these don't have a never-ending shelf life. Sure, through the years I've talked about, you know, using press and seal at the bottom. And then most recently I've switched to, I put rubber bands around these. I think these are like a number 82. And I know people like Simon Says and Ranger, a lot of people like sell these rubber bands now because these have helped prolong the life. It just goes around that gap in the lid to help seal it. But there again, this is not foolproof. Putting that on doesn't mean that you're going to get 2 or 3 years shelf life on a paste. It's one of those things with the medium. So I think it's really important to understand that when you're working with mediums, it doesn't mean you have to use it up in the week, but you definitely have to work with it. I see a question that's come up a couple times about lift ink on opaque. You cannot use lift ink on opaque because alcohol lift ink is done with alcohol ink, and that's done on a slick surface, and these are not slick. This is porous, so lift ink would not work off of something porous, whether it wouldn't work on cardstock either, so it won't work on the paste. Translucent paste, you can get a little bit of lift, but this has a resin in it, so it doesn't give you a true lift like how lift ink was designed to be used on, say, plastic or Yupo. So just wanted to answer that question. All right, so that's kind of the texture paste lineup of opaque, translucent, black opaque, sparkle, and twinkle. And really, hopefully you'll see stuff because I know there's makers that are posting on social with twinkle, and I know if any of them made, they probably struggled just the same trying to get it to pick up when you're taking a photo of it. It is quite the challenge. All right, let's take these off and we'll move on to grit. And I'm going to show you really not just swatches, but I'm going to show you differences in when we choose a different paste and what does that do and how does that kind of impact our choices. So grit paste is, well, different kinds. So opaque is going to be an opaque matte paste that has a texture. Translucent is going to be a translucent matte paste. So right away, there's a distinct difference between grit and texture, because we know that in the texture paste line, translucent was glossy. In grit, translucent is matte. So you can't always say like, oh, if it's translucent, it's glossy. Nope, you really have to kind of pay attention to the labels, because that certainly helps when it comes to at least identifying the properties, or reminding you, I should say, of the properties, all right? I see questions of like, what is the shelf life? Impossible to answer. Do you live in a hot climate, a cold climate? Is it humid? Is it dry? Have you used one scoop of it? Have you used half the jar? Because when you use it, it replaces the jar with air. So that's really like why shelf life is just impossible to note. So it's just one of those things that, I mean, I have had paste for months. I've had a couple that last over a year, but that's just something that's important to know. Like if you don't plan on using it, this is not one of those things that you just want to collect and put on the shelf, okay? But we can do all we can do to help prolong it. All right, so grit, let's get into that. So grit paste opaque, look at this. You can see how gritty this is. It's almost kind of sandy, but unlike the texture paste where it's porous, this doesn't want to absorb color like the other ones. It will absorb some color, but it doesn't absorb color like texture paste will. But we can tint it, and I'll go through all the tinting properties of these pastes because I'm just showing you the base, and that's where it becomes really interesting. It still remains flexible and pliable, but this base is actually a gesso base. So if you're familiar with gesso, gesso is very, very opaque. So this is a white thing, so you can put opaque texture paste on any surface and it will stay white. So it's often used for snow or all sorts of cool things. So I think that's really interesting. Then we have grit paste translucent. I love this one. It doesn't appear as gritty as white simply because you're not seeing the reflection, but it is just as gritty when you feel it. This is a great one because it is translucent. You can tint it with different inks and create things like rust, moss, granite. You can create all sorts of different effects with the translucent base because it is clear. Whereas when you try to color this, because as I mentioned, it's gesso, you would want to work with something like paint to actually tint this, but you're still going to fight against that white gesso base, where the translucent grit is just going to allow you to use paint, ink, you name it. It's going to be great to do it. But yeah, it's a really cool texture. And again, I love that it's flexible. Which inspired these other seasonal Crypt pastes? Because I mentioned granite. So Crypt is just where we took the base of translucent, we tinted it to give it this really cool color of like an old cemetery or graveyard, and then added little black flecks in it. So it really does look like granite or stone. I absolutely love it. A question, can you die cut through the paste? Absolutely. Once they're dry, you can die cut. So you can die cut a sheet and just cut it. Now, depending on how thick you apply it and the detail of your die, especially if you're using thin dies, you might not get a clean cut because let's say you're trying to cut a doily through this, that's not gonna work. But if you were gonna cut, you know, a rock shape or a tombstone or something, absolutely. And you could play around with how thick or thin you can apply, plus what base you apply it on. You know, are you applying it on a thinner cardstock or thicker? But yes, it is die cuttable once it dries. So Crypt, very cool effect because you'll see, I mean, this really does show up a lot at Halloween. I know Zoe Hillman, it's like her all-time favorite because you can use it for a lot. Vicky does a lot of cool stuff where she rubs it in and gets it wet and it dissolves and then it becomes rust. I mean, it's amazing. But there again, comes out Halloween time. So that just means buy a jar, use it for the season, knowing that you'll get another one next Halloween. Don't say, oh, I need to buy 6 unless you plan on really, you know, doing a wall in your room or something. Then we have Grit Paste Glow. Very cool. Grit Paste Glow, I just love it. It is a glow-in-the-dark paste. It charges by light. When the light's off, it glows. It glows for a while and then you charge it again with the light. But this is so fun because you can do stars, you can do all types of different backgrounds. One of the things I'll show, I'm going to just bring this in with glow, is that it is tintable. If you have a black light, which I talk about black light, a black light really is going to just, I think, help you see the properties of glow. I'm just going to push this out real quick just to kind of move that out of the way. There we go. You can see that it glows beautifully, but it's very black light reactive. Okay, I'm just using a little handheld one. But what's nice about the glow, that's the glow color without shutting off the lights. It just has that kind of greenish, beautiful glow. You can also tint it. Now, I've tried tinting it for a long time with different things. I've tried using re-inkers and all that. And quite honestly, I typically don't tint with alcohol inks, but alcohol neons are a different type of alcohol ink. It's actually a pigment-based ink, and maybe that's why it works better in paste, because historically, you'll see when I tint, I like to use a water-based re-inker. What kind of ink can you stamp on top of it? It really depends on the texture, but I would use a permanent ink. It could be archival, it could be StazOn, it could be VersaFine, but there again, if you're stamping on grit, it's going to be really bumpy. If you're stamping on textured or translucent, no problem, but something permanent for sure. So alcohol neons, because it is a pigment-based alcohol ink, it tinted this glow-in-the-dark paste so well, and it just created so many cool colors of glow. I can't say that it changed the glow color, if that makes sense. Like, it didn't make this purple glow purple, but it makes it glow purple-y, or almost like bluish. I'll just kind of wait to kind of catch up. So this is kind of like a white blue is what purple did. It's weird how it kind of turned it white, almost neutralized it, and maybe because when you do purple and yellow, often it does neutralize it. Then we've got blue. So it does make it, I mean, a bluish green, I would say. Very cool. And again, this is under black light versus just glow in the dark. But you can see on the green, like radioactive and fluorescent. Whoa, I mean that, just even when we compare it, let me bring this other swatch in. There we go. Just comparing the three glows, you can see by tinting it with either the green or the yellow, you see how it just, I think it just makes it glow even brighter. It's just crazy, but that's probably under a black light. And then of course, whether you're doing orange or even pink, see, pink doesn't really glow pink or red, but it's kind of a pinkish. Anyway, just fun, just some things to think about as you're getting into the Halloween making season and you like using grit paste glow and you happen to have alcohol inks. I'm not saying you can't use, you can use re-inkers, try using that, but I didn't find that adding re-inkers changed the intensity of how it glows the way that the alcohol neons did. Thought that was really an interesting thing that it happened. Okay, getting back to this. So then we'll talk about the last grit paste, which is Snowfall. Snowfall is just really a pretty snowy textured, very different. Let me just bring it to translucent, because you might be like, well, if it's snow and it's white, isn't it just translucent? No, see, when you look at translucent's almost kind of yellowy, just because of the base that we use for creating that texture in the grit. Snowfall, we actually use different particle sizes to actually create that. You can see it's way more chunky and fluffy, but this also has rock candy in it. So it also has rock candy glitter, and that's what makes it more fluffy. Now, because it's rock candy, you're not going to see the sparkle like you would see from a mylar or an iridescent glitter. This is just going to show you that wintry texture. I love Snowfall because you can build it up with a palette knife. There's some really cool things that you can do with this specific texture on different things for, I'll just say, for Christmas, okay? Let me just bring in some, just real quick, if we look at certain stencils. So like this is very cool to use, and you could use any of the paste with it, but when it comes to Snowfall, I just think that's really cool to see. There's also this one. This is kind of, you know, drippy snow, or if you're putting something on an etc. tag or a panel, also very cool. So you can apply that. It just has a different effect. Now, the other thing to note about these is when you apply them, they are wet. So you could put this on and you could also sprinkle glitter over the top of it. So let's say you wanted Snowfall, but you wanted it really glittery. You could apply this and then take rock candy or any kind of glitter, shake it on while it's wet, and it will dry on top of it. So that'll be cool. Oh, I just saw Simon says, in honor of Tim Asked and Answered, Simon says offering you 20% off all Ranger Tim Holtz products. Thanks, Simon says, Sam, 20% off. I like that.
That's awesome.
I like a sale. I was just reading that. I'm like, in honor of Tim. I'm like, oh, what am I being honored for? Very cool. What happens if you mix textures? Well, Cindy, you have a ball. Mix textures. Do all your things. So see what happens. Like you can take Crypt and you can mix it with glow and you can see what new color you get. You can mix grit with texture and add a little bit of grit to that texture. So absolutely, you can mix different things. I also think, keeping in mind that, you know, like I mentioned with Snowfall, if you wanted to be a little bit more glittery, throw in some glitter, mix it up. You know, throw in color in to mix it up. And we'll talk about tinting as well. But combining textures, be very cool. If you ask yourself the what if, I encourage you to try the what if, because you'll just discover something amazing. So that's grit. Then we're going to get into the crackles. We'll talk about collage medium, and then we'll get to the demos. I love seeing the questions coming, so thanks for that, you guys. So Crackle paste. So Crackle, if you've ever done anything Crackle, it's like a love-hate relationship. You have to kind of not only understand it, but you have to respect the properties of Crackle. Okay, because just because we want it to crack and it's designed to crack doesn't mean it always cracks. It really just depends on what you're doing. I don't recommend a specific paper, Carolyn. Try different ones. This is 130 pound, 80, but you can see even with certain textures, it's going to buckle your paper, especially what I'm about to talk about, Crackle. So Crackle in general is a product that you apply, and there's all types of different Crackles on the market, but its principle is the same. You apply it to a surface wet, and as it dries, it actually shrinks. It has shrinking agents in it that make this product shrink up, and when it does, it pulls away from itself, creating the cracks, okay? So when it does that, it doesn't matter what paper you use, your paper is going to do that. The only way you can not experience this is if you use Crackle paste on wood or etc., or like, you know, something very heavyweight. But that's okay because you can still glue this down, okay? So whether you're using heavy stock, whether you're using mixed media, tags, you'll still be able to glue down the Crackle because the Crackle remains flexible. Now Crackle needs tooth to grab onto. So when you apply, whether it's paste or paint, that surface needs to be porous. It needs to have some tooth, meaning if you try to put Crackle on glass, it'll crack and then it will all wipe off as soon as you touch it. And there's tricks around it. I can talk about that in just a minute. But keep that in mind that when you're putting it on stuff like you can put it on wood or paper or canvas, it needs to have tooth, all right? So this is Crackle Paste Opaque, so this is going to be a white Crackle. This gives a beautiful effect. This could be tinted ahead of time with paint, or you can paint and ink over it, which most of the makers do because that's where the magic comes in. When you add crayon or watercolor pencils or, you know, rub different colorants in there, you get all different colors into those cracks. The thicker you apply it, the bigger the cracks. So for this swatch, I just took a palette knife, spread it out, but it was much thicker in the middle and it got thinner on the outside. So you can see that the thickness of that determines the size of the cracks. However, this is not frosting. So if you apply it like you're icing a cake thinking, oh, well, if I put like a ½ an inch, I'll get these giant cracks. It actually won't do that because you have so much in there that it can't shrink and it just doesn't work well. So you need to practice with Crackle and kind of find that sweet spot where it comes to kind of working. Does it crack well when you add color to the paste? Yes, okay, it works great when you add color. Just depends on how much color you add. So you can add some paint, you can add ink, but if you add too much and you change the viscosity, you can risk impacting the shrinkage, if you will. So that's why most of the time you kind of work over the top of it because then you don't have to worry about it impacting the Crackle. But it's a great question. Crackle Paste Translucent, bigger cracks, totally different vibe than Opaque. And you think, well, it's just a clear version. Yes, but it's made entirely different. So unlike these really cool kind of dry earth cracks, this Crackle is just bigger, elongated cracks, which are great. It will also continue to crack. See how I can kind of get that to crack on the paper? So it's very interesting that you can get it to continue to crack because this does dry brittle, but again, it's on paper. Paper has tooth. This grabs onto the paper. This is where when you add in a wet medium like stain or crayon or something, it gets into the cracks and woo, magic. Because it's translucent, Crackle over things like photographs or pattern paper or something where you want to see an image underneath. I think that's really cool. Now, there is a difference between Crackle paste and Crackle paint. So be careful also if you're out shopping and you're looking at these and you're like, ooh, Crackle with a P, oh, both translucent. Okay, one says paste and one says paint, and they're very different. Paint has the viscosity of paint. It is incredibly liquid. You can brush it on. You could even do a palette knife, and its Crackle is also distinctly different. This is not as big as this, or I should say not as small as this, not as big as this. It's kind of right in the middle. So you can see Crackle paint. This is where you can apply it, and it has this really fine, almost porcelain kind of crackling, which is beautiful. But that's something that's really unique, but also glossy and shiny. So these two are shiny. This one is opaque. But cool mediums to just play around with and use. In any Asked and Answered or any demo I do, I love that you have questions about it, but at the end of the day, unless you actually use it and do it yourself, I could tell you 30 answers and you won't truly understand it until you do it and you're like, oh, I see what he means by thicker, or I see what he means by flexible, or I see what he means by this. Tanya asked, would you consider making mini jars? You know, when we launched the textures, we actually launched them in like mini sampler jars. But to be honest, the cost for production is just a few pennies difference between a jar this size and a jar this size. So value to the consumer is actually not great in a mini because it still requires a jar, a lid, labels, production. So that's really why we kind of stuck with this jar. And I like this jar because it does have a lower profile. I found that, like, you know, when we first launched Distressed Mediums, they were in these much taller jars. And it wasn't a good value because the more air you have, the better. You know, I mean, the worse it is for a product. What was that, Mario? Sorry, I was distracted with paint.
Canvas, if you're using Crackle on canvas.
Should you avoid layering over gesso? No, because gesso actually has some tooth to it. A majority of gessos have some tooth to it. So as long as it's got some tooth, but try it. Like, try a little spot on gesso and on plain canvas and see which medium performs better for the result that you want. Bigger cracks, thinner cracks, and all of those different things. I think, again, playing is great. So we're going to get into collage medium, and I'll do collage medium also kind of while I'm talking about, we just talked about Crackle. Collage medium is kind of, there's only one. We used to have different ones. We used to have tinted and crazing and all that, but now we just have like that, all right? When it comes to collage medium, this is very cool because it is a matte medium. It will glue all the different things. So it will glue paper and fabric and wood and plastic things like buttons and metal to metal, glass to metal. It is a matte finish. So when you apply it, it goes on white, but it will dry clear, but it will also dry matte. And it's a great medium just for the fact that it's like my go-to glue and everything. Collage medium comes in jars. It also comes in squeeze bottles, similar to glossy accents, where you can use it as a glue. But this medium does a lot of things also to textures. So for example, let's say you applied Crackle to something and you found that the Crackle was kind of maybe flaking off a little bit. You can apply some collage medium over the top of dry Crackle so it gets into those grooves, and that will help bond it to that surface a little bit better. Sometimes people like to put Crackle, say, on vignette and literally rub some of it off so it looks worn, but a little thin layer of collage medium will help bond that. Collage medium, because it is matte, is also a cool foundation. So you'll find techniques from a lot of makers. I've even done stuff in previous lives where you can apply collage medium over something slick like glass, or maybe like a glossy photo, let it dry, then you can apply Crackle over it and it will literally crack on the glass and stay. And you're like, well, wait a minute, you said Crackle didn't work on glass. It doesn't. It doesn't work on smooth, just untreated glass, but collage medium is going to give it that matte tooth. So it's a very cool base coat for a lot of slick surfaces to get textures to bond better. And not just with Crackle paste, sometimes I even do it with grit paste. So it's just a cool medium to use because it can glue all the things, but it can also be used as either a top coat or a great foundation when you're playing around with creating a different texture surface. Question, what's the difference between collage medium matte and multi-medium matte? No difference. Collage medium matte is my name to this product, and multi-medium matte is Ranger's name to the Ranger branded, but it's the same product. It's just whether you want the Distress brand or the Ranger brand, which is also Distress, but that's it. Because sometimes, you know, there's product that just gears towards different audiences, and for me, it wasn't so much a multi-medium. For me, it's really more about collage, and I felt that word was just better represented the product. And I love that Ranger allows us to do it. So collage medium for the win. I do love it. Okay, so far so good. You guys are doing good. I appreciate the questions, and I know it's a lot of info just kind of shooting at you, but that's what Asked and Answered is all about. It's just fun. So let's talk about color, but first I'm going to just put out my little demo mat, because this is something where if I'm going to start talking, I'll end up either talking with my hands or just wanting to get some product going. How are we doing, Mario? We pretty okay? Good, yes. All right. So one of the cool things about where you show collage medium crazing, I won't show that because collage medium crazing has been discontinued for a couple of years and it's just not available anymore. But it was tricky. It was actually the hardest one to get people to, you know, to find that sweet spot. So that's why it was discontinued. Sorry. I don't even have a jar to show you. All right. Let's talk about tinting. So I'm going to start, I'll bring Sparkle. We're going to talk about Sparkle and we're going to talk about Twinkle, but this would apply to any of the pastes that I've talked about thus far, okay? One cool thing about, let me just find I'm just finding all my stuff. There we go. All right, bring that in. One thing that I love about paste and that I hope you guys understand is that you probably have a lot of product in your craft room to customize all these textures. You've noticed that when I showed you all the different swatches, with the exception of the seasonal ones where like Crypt was tinted or glow, they were either white, black, or clear. They didn't really have any color to them. And you're like, well, gosh, you know, why not? Well, simply because you can do it yourself. And that to me is always the power of a maker, and you can use all different things. And my advice to you is to try things out, but more importantly, if you're taking notes during this, write down some really important things to note. If you are tinting a translucent or clear based paste, be that texture, crackle, sparkle, twinkle, anything that's translucent, your colorant should be translucent, see-through, typically a dye ink. Now, a dye ink could be a re-inker, it could be distress, it could be any kind of other stamp pad re-inker, it could even be a stamp pad that you push down, it could even be food coloring, okay? But your colorant, if you want that paste to remain translucent, should be translucent. Now, that doesn't mean I can't take texture paste, translucent, and tint it with paint. I can, but it will no longer be translucent, but it will still be glossy, okay? But it won't be see-through because paint is not see-through, it's opaque. When you go back to opaque things, opaque, it really doesn't matter. You can use a translucent dye, which is going to give you more intense color, or you can use an opaque colorant like paint. Really doesn't matter. But we're going to talk about specifically sparkle and twinkle because it's one of those things that once you start doing, it becomes pretty addicting, okay? So this was when sparkle came out, and we just started tinting all of the different colors. So you have all of these different pastes. And the beauty of this is that you just get to like make as you need. So you don't need a jar of this, a jar of this, a jar of this, a jar of this, a jar of this. You just have the one jar, take your inks, again, re-inker or just squishing your stamp pad or scribbling even a marker, depending on how juicy that is. And you can make like any color you want of those pastes. Because it's translucent, it's beautiful. And also because it's translucent, you can layer a cool thing. Okay, now something to note when it comes to colorant is I just talked about translucent and opaque, and I see a question about oxides. Could you use an oxide re-inker? Like I said, you can use any kind of colorant, but is an oxide translucent? No, it's opaque. So could you use it? Which I did here because I was sure that question was going to get asked. Yes, you can color it, but this paste is no longer translucent. The paste is now opaque. Why? Because oxide contains dye and pigment. Pigments are opaque. There you go. Susan answered that. Oxide has pigment, which is not translucent. You got it. So could you do it? Yes. But do you lose the translucency? Yes. So that's the trade-off. But you might be like, that's okay. You know, I guess you can see maybe some of that glitter in there, but it is buried under the oxide. All right. So now let's get into twinkle, probably my favorite. And this is something, I'm not kidding, all these swatches Mario and I did yesterday. Because once I started pulling colors, I really couldn't stop. He's like, how many are we doing? I'm like, I know, I need to stop. Because when you do it, it's so pretty. So here's where we get into, I'm going to try to find that sweet spot of light just to go through. And I'll show you how we tinted these. It's actually quite easy. But what I love about the new twinkle, because of that iridescent, is you can even do something really light and subtle, like you could do spun sugar or kitsch flamingo. So you can create different bright vibrancies. And you'll see as we go through the swatches, that twinkle kind of changes its property. It's really interesting. So like saltwater taffy or picked raspberry. And yes, there is a twinkle in there. And I just think it's so fascinating. I mean, I love sparkle and twinkle, so I wouldn't say that twinkle is the new sparkle for me. I like them both for different reasons. Red, I mean, you could see that it shows up, but I think the darker you get, the less of all the undertones you get of twinkle, but it certainly, I mean, you can see when the light hits it, it certainly twinkles. Look at this one, dried marigold, the beautiful kind of peachy twinkle. I love it, like a little, for Halloween, I love just getting that little bit of glitter in there because again, twinkle paste is not a glitter paste in the sense where it's solid. You get to add this over it. And you might think, well, what am I doing with these swatches? Well, you could put it through a stencil. You can do all sorts of things. But I love, like, let's say I was doing a moon or stars. I love the fact that I could take this as squeezed lemonade, a little squeezed lemonade, a little twinkle paste, mix it up and go over a moon stencil or stars on a Halloween card. And I already have it done. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't ink through a stencil and then add the clear twinkle paste. Absolutely. This is just showing you another option for the paste. See, there's no right or wrong. It's like, okay. Again, a question, how long does it take to dry? It's the $1,000,000 question. Is it raining? Is it snowing? Is it humid? Is it hot? Is it cold? Did you put it on thick? Did you put it on thin? I would say we live in a dry climate, we live in Arizona, so it's never really, I think, fair for us to answer like, oh, it's 10 minutes. It really would be 10 minutes like in Arizona world. But I would say you could expect it to dry within, like on a paste like this, you can expect it to be dry in about 30 minutes. If you applied it really thin or rubbed it in or used a heat tool, just for warm air, not to emboss it, or a fan, you could probably cut that time down to about 15 minutes. That'd be what I think. But for drying time, the drier and the more air that moves, the quicker it's going to dry for you. Ooh, I love that one. Little fossilized amber. Okay, twisted citron. I'll flip through these really quick. Look at that. Crushed olive. Little. I love peeled paint. I love bundled sage. Look at bundled sage. Isn't that magical? So good for Christmas. Imagine, because you can also do this, even if you're not going to use it on a stencil, you can just go in and like pick this up with your finger and like apply it to a die cut. So let's say you die cut a bunch of holly leaves. You could die cut before or after. We've already talked about that yes, you can die cut through paste. But let's say you already had a bunch of stuff die cut. Well, just use your finger or paintbrush and paint on this tinted thing, and now you would have these enameled looking pieces. I find it a little cleaner to die cut before, but ooh, look at that, rustic wilderness. Oh my gosh. All right, look at this minty one. This is cracked pistachio. Cracked pistachio is one of those colors that the lighter it is, the more minty it is, the heavier the concentration of color, the more pistachio it is, but beautiful. Tumbled glass. Maybe we'll just keep, you could see why I didn't stop. I saw that comment. You're absolutely right. Yeah, tumbled glass. It'll never do it justice till you, oh my gosh, little peacock feathers, salty ocean, uncharted mariner. I mean, come on, those colors. We get into like Victorian velvet, not a color I use often, but I really loved Victorian velvet with this twinkle because I think it brought out so many different colors. It's just fabulous. Seedless preserves, shaded lilac, wilted violet. And then we even did some grungy ones like antique linen. It's so pretty on antique linen because it does just give it that soft little twinkle. Then even grungy colors. Yeah, frayed burlap. It's going to get its glitter on. Don't think I would overlook that. A little vintage photo, a little walnut stain. Hickory smoke will work. Hickory smoke or pumice stone. This one's pumice stone. This one's hickory. So both of those grays I think glittered really nice. And yes, even black. Now I would have to say when it came to black soot, it's just like how that red was. It's so intense that I don't really appreciate the black on this one like I did on Sparkle. See, I thought Sparkle just shows better than Twinkle when it came to mixing it in. And maybe it's because, you know, too much ink. I don't really know. I don't think so, because even in the dark areas. And that's just because this is translucent glitter that's in Twinkle and Sparkle is opaque metallic. So, you know, hopefully when you kind of see all of that, you just get a better understanding that you can do it. So let's just show how to do it. I do see a question, will it ruin a stamp if you're stamping it? You should not stamp in these when they're wet. These are designed to bond to the surface they are applied to, stamps included. So if you stamped into it wet, one, I think it would just all stick to the stamp, even when you tried to lift it off. If you stamped into it when, let's say it was like 80% dry and you maybe wet the stamp and stamped into it, you could probably definitely do that. Probably definitely. But if you just stamped into wet paste, it's probably just going to gunk up your stamp. You could clean it off right away. It's not going to ruin it that way. But I think if you left it, it would be bad. All right. Let me just get a little piece of palette paper. You can mix on anything, but you know, typically when I mix colors, I just want something that's disposable. So like wax paper, parchment paper. But if you wanted to work directly on your glass mat or a craft sheet, go ahead. All right, let's do some Twinkle. I mean, I'll do Twinkle, Sparkle, and I'll just watch the chat if there's any other questions. All right, we're going to take some paste. So again, rubber band, just pull that off the side. Palette knives, work with whatever you're comfortable with. You know, these are the distress palette knives, not because they're anything special. They're just special to me because I like these sizes. But any kind of palette knife is going to work. Big flat one, short little spiky one, whatever you want to do. You're just going to start by picking up some paste. And when you pick up paste, it's a good idea to pick it up on the back or the bottom of the palette, not scoop it in like a spoon, because then it just makes it really hard to take that off. okay? So just kind of,
that last night.
Mario did learn that last night, because I saw him like tap, tap, tap. I'm like, hey, just pick it up from the back. You can see its viscosity, kind of like yogurt or mayo. Just gonna spread some out right there. I'm just gonna put the lid on. If you're making several, you can just set the lid on, but if you're done, you can get that off. It is the sports car. I do, see, you could tell that Kelly's watched these, because I do call this like the sports car of palette knives. I just love it because it just like it gets it around the curves really quick, gets in all those tight places. It's just, that's my favorite. That's why we did it in distress. Okay, color. Let's do something like, gosh, I don't know. We could do something purpley, bright. We'll start with, let's do something purpley, just because I know that would probably shock people. Do a little wilted violet. Okay, so next I'm just going to take a little bit of ink, and I'm going to start with a drop. Okay, one drip of a water-based ink. You can always add more, but there's no takesies backsies. If it's too dark, then you just have to add more paste than probably what you want. To mix in the color, you're simply going to like push that color in and drag it across. Push, drag, push, drag. You can try spinning it. You can have whatever technique works for you, but typically that's all I do. I just kind of scrape it up, drag it out, because I want to mix that color in, and that's it. It's done. So now I can just pick up all this stuff, and again, this could be on a glass mat or whatever you want to do. Put it back on the back of the palette knife, and whatever it is you're going to apply it to. Okay, this could be through a stencil, this could be whatever. So here's the thing about applying the paste. What I like about the angle of this is that I can just kind of hover over the surface as I'm applying this. If I use a lot of pressure, I'm going to scrape it off. If I go flat, I'm going to scoop it up like a little snowplow. So you just kind of angle it. You can also go back several times, and you can play around with different angles. You can tap it. You can do all those different crazy things. But remember, this is a texture paste. So whatever texture you provide is the texture that it will dry. Okay. I see a question about tinting with sprays. You can tint with sprays because it is still a translucent colorant, but a spray is more liquid. So that means you should only add less, which means you're not going to get as concentrated of a color, but yes, you can still do it. But if you hose down some paste with, say, a full shot of spray, you're going to turn this into a slimy viscosity that will not hold its shape. So if sprays are all you have, just try with like a little drip of it and not a spray of it, if that makes sense. But the color will be much lighter. If you use alcohol inks, that's one of those things that you just have to try and see if it works. I've never really been lucky with using alcohol inks as a tint on everything. It works on some of them, but like on the translucent ones, it separates for whatever reason, but it didn't do that with the neons because those are pigment. So just play around. Again, play around with what you have. But you can see as I'm playing with this color, that's why I wanted to show you, you can put it on super thin and it will dry with more translucency. And there's still glitter in here. You just can't see the glitter until it's dry. But if you like apply it in different ways, you can just get it to be darker and lighter. That's the beauty of like playing around with a palette knife. Now, the big thing is like the waiting game, because everyone's like, how long does it take to dry? Where is it going to? The thing is, could you speed it up? Yes. Should you? I don't think so. Just because a texture paste is a dimensional liquid, right? So, I don't know, without being gross, because I don't like pudding, I'm going to talk about pudding. Pudding to me is gross, so that's why I say without being gross. Okay, pudding, when you have pudding sitting out, it gets a skin over the top of it, right? And then, so if you touch the top after it was sitting out, it would seem dry. But if you stuck a spoon into it, it would all be wet and gooey under there, and then that skin kind of wrinkles up on the top. Kind of think of that when you think of texture paste and speeding up the drying time. If you use a heat tool, you'll quickly form a skin over the top of it, but the inside is still going to be gooey. The other thing about using a heat tool is that the heat will also blister this. It will bubble it. It will make the stuff kind of blow up and swell. Maybe that's what you're going for. A cool air like fan, like if you had a ceiling fan or just a cool air fan, no problem. So definitely you can speed it up with a fan because cool air circulating will essentially dry it quicker, but it won't dry it from just the skin down. I hope that makes sense. That to me is what's important, because I've tried that. Because trust me, I'm the most impatient. If you've seen any demos, like I want things to happen now. But in the case of textures, one of those things that you just do and set it aside and come back to it. So that's why you can create all of it. You can never eat pudding again. I am not a fan of pudding, as you can tell. All right, so this I'll just would set it aside to dry. And like I said, it's gonna maybe take 15 minutes, maybe 30. We can come back to see it. But what it will look like, let me find that swatch, because we did already do one with that same color, is this is what it's going to look like. So let me just bring this back into view just to show you. So same color, but remember that paste was kind of that white base. I said yogurt or mayo. So the color just kind of looks a little creamy, but it will dry translucent and all that magic will happen. So this is what I was saying, that when it's thinner, you get that thinner shade of translucency, and when it's thicker, you get a more intense color. That's what's so fun about just being able to make a little batch and use it how you want to use it. But that's also important to remember that because it's clear base, you can already do your inking. If you're like, I never want to be bothered. I mean, do I tint a lot of paste? Not often. I only do it if I know, like, say I was talking about stars or leaves. I want something all the same color. This is pretty much my go-to, which is I prefer to do all my colors with inks, and then I will come back and add paste, which I can show you that as well. All right. Oh, here's the other thing. I think I did, let me just double check. Yeah, I did. So we talked about ink and oxide. This is Salvage Patina Distress Ink Reinker, and this is Salvage Patina Oxide Reinker. So you can see that on the Distress Ink, sparkly, beautiful. Oxide, wah, wah. Still a pretty color, but you're not getting any of that sparkly look. So that's it. Okay. All right. This, if you were making another batch, you could then just fold this, make another batch, and then eventually you just toss it. This all cleans up with water while it's wet. So I do have a little tray of water off the side of the camera. I just dip it in and then just wipe it off with a paper towel. Pretty fun, right? Let's do a sparkle one real quick, just because it's out. Pretty simple. Okay. All right. Take another little piece of palette. This one, we're going to do sparkle. So same rules apply. And then this, I just, see it's kind of yogurty. Kind of give it a little tap, put the lid on. And then when I'm done, I just put the rubber bands on. I think that's important. All right. But I hear you. I mean, really, and I never want you to think during an Asked and Answered that asking a question the way I answer it is like I'm offended by it or trying to embarrass you. I'm not. I'm just trying to give you the best analogy, you know, like why you don't do it. But does that mean you can't fire up your heat tool? No, go ahead. But if you're seeing like, oh, this is weird, it's kind of getting a skin and it's like shrinking and bubbling, why? But now you know. Pudding. Remember that. Okay, let's do speckled egg. That'll be pretty. Okay. What's up, Mario?
I knew as soon as I heard pudding. I'm like, here we go.
Yeah, I'm just not a fan. That's unfortunate too. All right. Just gonna mix. So like I said, one drop is good. You can always go back, and hey, you can even do a half a drop. If you kind of find your little color jam, like maybe you want to do something light, like this is speckled egg, but you want something even lighter and you don't have a lighter color of ink, that's where you can get an ink pad and squish it down and just use the ink from that. Because re-inkers are very concentrated. You know, you kind of think of it, it's like the food coloring of the stamping world. It's a concentrated colorant that you re-ink your stamp pad with, so you don't need a lot. Ooh, this is such a pretty color. Look at that color. See, it's kind of that robin egg blue. So nice. And that could just go through, well, let's just pull it through a stencil. Because let's see, just something wintry. So let's just say we have like a little snowflake. Let's do that. Okay, I'll take this off. I grouped my stencils with like Christmas, Halloween every day, because I didn't know. See, like stars, that's what I was talking about. Twinkly things, flowers, trees. We'll use some of those Christmassy ones. Got to do some Halloween too. Kind of in the zone here for Halloween. All right, gonna scoop this up, place this down. You can do all the tricks, you know, you can do mats and tape and all that, but just for the sake of this Asked and Answered, I'm just going rogue here and not really fully securing it. But I want you to see how you can still apply that. Pick that up, let that off. This, just gonna go in water, just to keep that wet and clean it off. And there we have it. It still has beautiful detail, and you wouldn't think it would, because it kind of looks like yogurt or something. It's just weird. But when it comes to doing this, like it's pretty amazing, isn't it? How it keeps that detail even in something just really delicate like that. All right, let me clean this off. All right, how are we doing? So far, so good. Perfect. Okay, let's just keep things going. I always want to make sure the lids are on re-inkers. My gosh, nothing worse. I did see a question about where to get these little labels. These are on Ranger's website. Kubert made these for me. You can print it out on a piece of cardstock and it tells you which 2 hole punches to use. And then it just slides onto that little dropper. It's really helpful. I should glue them on though. I think that's what I'm gonna do because most of the time, by the time I put these away, these things go flying and then I have to like fix it again. Okay, so I covered that. Let's talk about paint real quick and different ways that we can use texture paste with paint now that we're on this subject of coloring. Okay. So texture paste, let's just talk about texture paste opaque. I did this technique, oh my gosh, several years ago. So there's probably a video for it, I just don't know where, but it was a way that you can use a stencil and texture paste and actually paint each individual thing. And this was not done by tinting, okay? But I'll talk about tinting and then I'll get back to that make. So I just didn't want to confuse the two because they were on screen. Palette, texture paste opaque. Could I color this with a re-inker? Yes. But could I also color with paint? Yes. Why? When would you choose one over the other? I don't know. Maybe whatever's close, or maybe because I want my texture to not be an intense colors, therefore I wouldn't use a re-inker. I want it to be a little bit more of a softer color, so I'd choose paint. You really have options when it comes to coloring something opaque. So this one you can see is very fluffy, very much like frosting. I like that. Okay, so let's just color this one with some paint. It could be any kind of acrylic paint. And like I said, it could also be ink. You just have to play around. I just want to show you the possibilities of it. You're like, oh, well, could I use this? And then could I add glitter? Yes, I mean, you really can. It's like you think about all the different things that you can add to products. It's no different than paste. And I think sometimes seeing it, then you understand that, oh, well, if I just have those core pastes that I like from a texture perspective, you know, maybe if I just, because I don't know if you need all of them, only if you're going to use all of them. But if you're like, no, I'm just more of an opaque person, or, oh, I love glossy stuff, or I love glittery stuff, then that's the paste that you should have. Or, oh, I love all things crackled. That's one of those things that you should purchase as you need them or as you have the idea for them, and then build your collection if you see something that inspires you. But you see how quick that paint mixed into that paste? Super fast. If it was ink, you have to do a little bit more work to it because we're trying to use a dye. But because this is a pigment, it floats into that fluff very, very quickly, very smooth, and it's just going to dry with that really pretty color and finish. Simple. Okay, clean that off. All right, so far, so good. Yes, it is. It just gives you a softer vibe, but I always say use what you have, but there's a reason why we do what we do. Okay, now how do we do this one? This one's actually pretty simple. I'm going to see if I think I took that stencil. This is something that, let's find that. Do we have a heart stencil? Yes. Okay. And I have a lot of other samples, so I'm just watching the chat. I'm trying to balance the best I can. Okay. This one is starting off on a surface. I think this one happened to be some mixed media. I think maybe it was. Because it really didn't matter for this one, but I think seeing this beige background, that's probably what it is. Refresh my memory. To add color, do I want to use translucent or opaque? I don't know. It depends on what you want, Tammy. If you want a translucent color, you use a translucent colorant like an ink. And if you want it opaque, you just use an opaque base and your colorant doesn't matter. Because whether I colored the opaque with paint or ink, it's going to still be opaque. Okay, but if you use an opaque colorant on a translucent paste, you've now turned the paste into it being opaque. Like I said, if you do it and just make yourself swatches, it's the easiest way to look and go. And the beauty of swatches is you can write yourself notes like this one's tinted with this. It's the same reason why I asked myself about salvage patina. I'm like, oh, I wonder, how this is going to work. Let me see how it would work with Oxide. No, it didn't work. Question, is there going to be a black crackle? There will not be a black crackle. Believe it or not, we've tried. And when we add the black colorant, the black gesso, the same thing that colors the texture paste black to the crackle base, it no longer cracks. So my advice would be to just paint over it when it's done. So I think that's good. Will mixing paint with opaque texture paste make it resistant to inking? That's a great question, Amy. That means you know the properties of paint and that it's a resist. The answer is no and yes. Okay, so it's still going to be porous, and I love that because that just means you've already connected the dots, and I so appreciate that. You're like, I know what he said, opaque is going to absorb the color, but man, when we use distress paint, it's a resist. But when you combine the two, it will still absorb color, but not if it was just by itself, meaning you will always have that tint of whatever you tinted it with paint show through, which is also for a cool effect. So let's say, for example, on the cracked pistachio one, you put it on, you let it dry, so now it has a minty base, but then you went over with like green spray stain, okay? Some of that green will start absorbing into the texture paste, but you can also pull some of it out and you'll see this color remain. I'll demo that. I'll show you what I mean about adding and subtracting color. Just have to remember to do that after I do this one, okay? That's a great question, but no, it won't resist it. It will still take the color, but it won't completely cover this color because the paint is always going to overpower any spray or color you put over the top of it. But if it was just plain paste, the color is going to go through and through. All right, so for this box, I started with a sheet of paper, just like I'm doing now, and I applied texture paste. So you can see when I'm applying the paste, I'm spreading it out, and then I'm using just the angle and just kind of skimming it off. So spread flat, skim, almost like when you're mixing it as well. A couple of rules of thumb that I follow when I'm applying paste. The more you overwork it, the more it starts to dry and actually rolls off the stencil, okay? If you press it down and you skip across, that's how you can get it in the little grooves, all right? If you have too much paste, let's just say like this, where you can't see the design, when you lift up your stencil, the paste will actually stretch and then collapse. It'll usually go outside the stencil line. So there's just that balance of you want to skim it off, but I don't actually like scrape anything over the top of it. If I can see the design, I've taken off enough. Hope that makes sense. All right. Then all you're going to do is you're going to remove this. Now, this particular paste is super robust in the sense that it just pops off, but there's all the texture. And this is what I love about this particular paste. Every little line, bump, groove, drag, pocket remains. I love the texture of that, and that is just texture paste. So you can imagine that grit paste is even grittier. For those that want to color Crackle, my advice, and I mentioned this at the beginning, is to just start with the white Crackle as it is, and then go over it with paint or crayon after it dries, because then you could even put a secondary color in the cracks. So for example, if you had this Crackle paste, you applied it, it dried white, then I took black distress paint and rubbed that over the whole thing. Now you have black Crackle. Let that dry. Then I could take a salvage patina crayon, rub that over it, wipe it with my fingers and water, and then the salvage patina would stay in the cracks. So I would have black surface with blue cracks, or gold, or whatever you did. So that's really why it's just important to like use it and use the things on it and not be so caught up in mixing all the colors. The colors are fun if you're, like I said, doing the translucent. That's why I only have swatches of these, because these are fun to like spread over a background or a stencil. In the case of this, I applied it, I let it dry. So just imagine this was already dry. Then all you're going to do, let me just take this out real quick. It's in my pot of water. But I love that you guys are curious, and I hope that this curiosity actually turns into you trying it, because then that means I've done what I came here to do, which is to inspire you to use it and try it. And because when you do, you become way more comfortable with it. Okay. So imagine this being dried. It isn't dry yet, but let's just say it was. How did I do this? After this was dry, I took the same stencil, I applied it right back over the top of that design. Then I went in with my colors of distress paint, a paintbrush, and actually went and painted into the stencil. I used the stencil as a stencil. So going in, then I painted that pink and painted that one pink and painted that one pink. And that's how you get all the different colors, but they're still dimensional and textural. You just, after it dried, you use the stencil again as a stencil. Then when it was dry, I did collage medium and crayon. That's how I made mine kind of grungy, but that's really how the different colored textured things are. I didn't whip up a batch of 6 colors of paste and like put like finger paint each one. It's just much easier to just do it and then add that stencil again to do it. Okay, hope that makes sense. Great. Moving on. Am I doing all right, Mario? I'm trying to figure it out, trying my best. Okay.
You're good.
So let's before I go into thank you. Before I go into other things, let's play around with some things that are done, and we'll talk about what we can do. Okay. Question: if you put paste through a stencil onto flexible plastic, could you peel the stencil images off? I don't know. It would be doubtful, but I've not tried that to say like yes or no. The paste is designed to bond to a surface, even slick surfaces, unless it's Crackle. So you would have to try that, because like you can use grit paste Crypt on a piece of stone or resin, and when it dries, like it doesn't peel off. You'd have to sand it off. So that I'm not sure if that idea would work. If it was on a non-stick craft sheet, yes. But on a piece of plastic, it would bond to plastic, I think. Okay. Curiosities. Okay, let's, where's my tin of happy? I have it somewhere. Here it is. When I say my tin of happy, the tin of happy is usually just, I like to keep these tins of ideas. This is how my creative brain stays somewhat organized, and I use that term loosely. I just love these distress storage tins. You can use whatever you want. You can use a pocket, a box, but my encouragement to you is, instead of taking all of your ideas and piling them in one giant box that you could sift through, or you'll never sift through because it's too much work and chaos to figure it out. If you have certain ideas, like I have all my textured stuff in a tin, I have all my alcohol ink backgrounds. It doesn't matter what kind of alcohol ink, in a tin. I have all of my pre-embossed stuff in a tin. It just helps because now when I'm doing textures, I just open the tin. Some backgrounds are like not even done, just pre-textured. And some are ones, oh, there's a piece of paper from that. That was a leftover piece that I had from that box. So some pieces are just scrap, but I can either use it or it will refresh my memory of what I did. So that's just a little bit of advice. Let's go through this. Let's look through some of these, see if I can kind of figure it out. So this was translucent paste on Yupo. So Yupo is plastic, and these don't peel off. So that's why I don't think it would peel off on that. But this was done where I wanted to see how the paste would hold up to alcohol ink. And so I did an alcohol inked background. This is, I don't know the video. I put translucent paste through it, which trapped the color. And then I let it dry and then sprayed it with alcohol. And then the background lightened, but the alcohol under the dots remained. That was fun. Ooh, this one. Look at this. This is black, opaque texture paste with spray stain, mica stain. This was pre-distress spritz. I think I have a black background. Let's do that. Let me do that one. Do I have one already done? Oh, please. Wouldn't that be great? If not, I'll do some black paste and then we can come back to it. Snapdragon. All right, let's do it. Let me put on a piece. Let me just get some black paste down. We'll take another trip down memory lane and then we'll come back to that. All right, let's do, we'll do a tag again. Okay, let's do this. Let's see. Halloween, bats, dots, but I do love that script. But let's do something different because I already have a scripty one. We could do some bats. I think bats would be fun. Yeah, let's do a batty one. I don't know. Yeah, I'll do that. Ooh, like a little crocodile. Maybe we'll do a little bit of that too. Oh, here's a thing to know. I wanted to bring this out because, you know, we do love Crackle when it comes to talking about it. Here's a cheat for those of you. See, this is Asked and Answered. It's like buckle up, Buttercup, because my brain is like short-circuiting. I also describe my brain. I've described it many ways. Sometimes it's popcorn, you know, it burns or simmers or explodes all over the place. And other times it's like a radio station. Sometimes the idea is coming in loud and clear. And then you go through the mountains and all I hear is static. And it's like, what was going on? And then like the song comes back and I'm like, yeah, I got it. All right. So let's just talk about these and then I'll get back to black and then we'll get back to the memory lane. But these are very cool stencils for people that love Crackle, but just struggle with it, because I hear you. And this is also a good cheat for black Crackle. These are two different stencils from Stampers Anonymous, 039 and 171, and they do very different things. This one is technically Crackle. This one, believe it or not, I actually designed it to be lightning. And I think it's called cracked, or it's called something, but I don't think it's called lightning. I'd be surprised if it is, because I don't really go by names anymore. I go by numbers. But this was really for lightning. So imagine this on a background with grit paste glow to do lightning for a card. So that's what I'll show you. So I'll just take one piece of black, Tim. You don't need a whole stack. And you can position these however you want. Like, who cares that it's a tag? It's just about the design that you want, okay? So let's say I want like that coming into the corner. Okay, perfect. You can do a lot of things. You can mask off with whatever you want to mask. I'm just going to mask with a piece of media grip. I use the media grip for a lot of things. I know grip mats are all the rage. I love grip mats. I have some myself, but media grip is just fun because I can use it under things to grip, but I can also grip things over. So see, now it's kind of there, but it's also going to work as a Post-it. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
My brain is just blah, blah, blah. Okay, glow. I'm going to take some of that, and let's just put some of that through this. It's still gritty. So it's weird when you apply grit paste because it's like playing with sand. It's kind of weird. If you overwork this one, my gosh, it starts just rolling over itself, but you do have some flexibility. Yeah, I'll do a little bit more in that corner. You don't need much. See, always when you pick up from the back, like, you don't always have to just scoop it up. Just take what you need. And you can always put back what you don't need. So there you go. That's enough glow. And I'm just going to kind of skim off the excess, but don't skim too much of grit because it just kind of clumps itself and it starts pulling everything off. And we're just going to put back that excess paste, put it back in the jar, take this off. I love this because I can just throw this in the water because it's just a piece of silicone and then dry it off. There you go. So it's just kind of this, it doesn't rip. It's just stretchy stuff. All right, let's throw that over there. Let's dismount this. I was looking for a craft pick, but I'm just going to use my nails. There we go. Okay, this. Now, some people go in and actually, you know, if you're on a budget, you can scrape this off and put it back in the jar. But I just find that it doesn't do that much. But take a look at that. When this dries, it's going to be glow-in-the-dark lightning. Freaking cool. That's just fun. I absolutely love the idea of using that stencil for lightning. And now that lightning, of course, is going to glow in the dark. It could be metallic, which we'll get into metallics later on in this. It's pretty cool. We'll talk about that and how we can incorporate metallic. Now, let's say the other one, we actually wanted to create a crackle effect, but we didn't want to use crackle paste. Well, that's where a stencil could really come into play. And because everyone's been talking about black, let's do that. Let's just, the paper doesn't matter. I'm just grabbing paper just so you guys get the idea. But this is a crackle stencil. This is a really delicate stencil that Stampers Anonymous does. I mean, look at just how thin the lines are. My gosh, it's so good that they do that. So much detail. Let's take black.
Stencil, do you have the number handy?
Oh, I said the number. It's in the water. It's 171.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And this one's, the one I'm about to use is 039. But I could see it in the water, so they're good timing. All right, so this one, when you go to use it, I would tape it down because see that little shadow right there? You want this to like be as far down or as secure as you want. But I never use a stencil from top to bottom. I just use parts and pieces. So for this one, I'm just going to position it. I'm going to push down the paste and I'm going to skim it across the top. Push, skim, okay? That's what's just going to get the paste wherever you need to go. And I do prefer a plastic knife over metal. Why? I don't know. It doesn't mean that you can't use metal ones. I just find that I'm probably a little too aggressive, and when I use a metal palette knife, I tend to catch the stencil more, but honestly, whatever you have is going to work. I'm going to put that back. Now we're just going to lift this off. So this, I'll just pick up this card just so you can see, and then I'm just going to lift up the stencil. Look at that, black crackle. How cool. Let it dry, ink it, stain it, do whatever you want to do. Very cool, okay? This, done. Now the grip, I did see a couple questions on the grip. My grip mat, I've cut in a bazillion pieces, so that's what I use. Sometimes I have it like under a tag if I'm doing stenciling. I have a big sheet. I have squares if I'm using it for ink pads. So I just grab what I have. I always have it at the ready because it's reusable indefinitely. I like it, but it's a grip mat. It's not a sticky mat. So that's the difference, is it's just designed to grip things, not stick things. All right, we're gonna let that one dry. That'll be fun. And then, oh, I need the black for the bats. See, Holtz? I'm gonna let that dry. Mario, can I hand you some things to dry,
Sure.
please? Thanks. You'll have to remind me though. Can you bring them out to the garage?
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks. And let me give you the bats too.
Okay.
let's do, where was that bat? Okay. Thanks, Mario.
You're welcome.
Yes, the garage is the warm spot in the house this time of year, so we can get stuff to dry pretty quick. All right, let's just do the bats. So for this, because I actually want to do a fairly good job, I'm just gonna use a piece of grip that will grip everything. That's why I have it cut. Boom. It'll grip the tag and it will grip the stencil, but it won't hold the stencil. See, but I don't know. I just have, and again, I'm not saying this to diss anyone or any company. When I work, I'm always going to hold the stencil. So I don't really need it to, I just need it to grip so it doesn't slide on the glass mat, but I don't need it to stick. But that's, you do you. Okay, I'm just going with that little trail of bats. How about that? I love that whole idea. Maybe I'll have some come off the side here. There we go. All the products, all the ideas, all the fun. All right, let's lift this off.
I feel like I'm on a lunch line.
Nice. I like that. Oop.
Put it right
Sorry.
there.
Yep. Thanks. There we go. Thanks. All right. Thanks, Mario. Okay. Clean that off. And I'll take that. What did I see? Tim's garage is like Diane's bum up. That's funny. I do remember saying that for years. Okay. All clean. I just put it right in. These are just, these are Simon Says stamped little, I think these are paper hole. I don't know what they are. They were something that had seams on the side, but I cut off this, like, I think it was a pocket. But the thing about grip is it grips. It grips dust, it grips glitter, it grips anything. But you can wash it and it will it gets back its grip indefinitely. But I like to store them in something that doesn't collect all the dust. So there we go. Now we're going to let that dry. We'll go back to our little trip down memory lane. Back to all of those, because the textures are cool. And we'll come back to the black. We have time if you guys are still interested. All right, I tried to prep as much, but I should have had one of these done. All right, so some other things. You can paint with powder. This is a cool technique where we use embossing glaze on this. You can add embossing glaze to Crackle. This is a technique that Stacy did. So this is distressed Crackle paste. And this is actually sprinkling little bits of distress embossing glaze over the top of it, letting it dry, and then embossing it. So not only do you get the enamel, but you also get those beautiful little crackly looks. And I've done this technique like so many times. It's just a different, and it cracks totally different. You can see, like, this is, you know, Crackle paste, which you've seen from the Swatch is, well, when you apply it just by itself, it's pretty big. But when you sprinkle the powder on it while it's wet, it just creates these beautiful little crackles. This is kind of the porous stuff that I'm talking about. I'll show you some of that. This is another one of my favorites. So this is using the embossing glaze, but not on Crackle, on grit. I think that's a good segue to show you that. Let's first talk about this and then I'll jump back to that. I'm still watching the chat. So if you guys have questions just that I'm not following, I'll do my best to help you. So let's just talk about a couple of things. So this is regular opaque. You can tell because you can feel it. This is translucent. You can tell because it's glossy. There's all sorts of different ones. This one's Crackle. So look at that one. That one already has Crackle on it. That's pretty. We can use that. There's just all, this is up my brain. Sometimes when I'm getting out my paste in my stencils, I'll just stencil many things before I put everything away, because then it's just easier to see. Okay, so let's just talk about this one. We could do a couple of them. We'll do a couple different designs just so you can see it. I'm gonna move this out of the way, but we'll get there. Okay, both of these are texture paste opaque. I know that because it's white, I can feel it, it's designed, but I wanna talk about the porous properties of these. So let's just say we wanna do something really basic and simple. Sprays are going to be the easiest. Could you use a blending brush or something? Yes. But when you rub over a texture, like just take your knuckles and feel it. Like it's going to destroy your blending foam. It's going to start ripping away at the actual detail of a stencil if you're too aggressive with it. So to me, a spray is where it's at. If you don't have a spray, you could smush your ink pads and try to get color in there, but it's going to be really hard to get color in the zones. If you don't have any sprays and you only have ink pads, a tip would be to squish your ink pads out, then take a watercolor brush, just like a big brush with water, and then watercolor it. But fluid colorants are going to be much better for this. So here, let's just add some different colors. Now again, this paper is dry. If I want my colors to blend a little bit, and maybe this one I do, I'm going to start with just a little bit of water. It's really interesting because when these pastes dry, they're designed to absorb, which is why, like when we talked about, you know, could you stamp into it, all of that. They don't like to clean off once they're dry, because if they did, they wouldn't be really good for what we use it for, which is ink and all of that. Let's do a little bit of crushed olive. There we go. A little splattering over that. All right. I have some other colors on this one. So let me see, what do I have over here? I also have some mica stains. Because really, it's anything that you got sprayable, even if they're mica stains, we can go with that. I'm just looking to see what color. These are all still pretty light. It's okay, I'll use this one. A little Wicked Elixir. We'll do that. Okay. Let's spray a little bit of that on there. That's going to give me a little bit of mica. Okay, I like that. I think that's good for now. Maybe I want to add, no, I don't think I want to add anything. Step away. So what can you do with this? Well, you can let it dry, but the beauty of this is now that the paste is dry, it's just like paper. So now you can use the heat tool. The paste is long done, so now you treat it like you would everything else. You can dry your backgrounds. You can let this air dry still, but I love the fact that you can just go in and treat it just like you would a paper background. So I'm just going to dry this. I'm not doing any blending or anything. Could you? Yes. Could you spray with water? Yes. Could you do all you? Yes, yes, and yes. This is just so you can see like the impact or the subtlety that you can achieve with different products. Okay. So let's just dry this. All right. So I'm going to take a cloth. Just going to get rid of this ink. You can do whatever you want with that ink. You know, if you had another anything. But I just want to take most of it off the glass. I'm still going to use some ink. But this is our background now. And the background is dry. It still remains totally flexible. But you can see the color. You see how the color soaked into this exactly how it would paper. This is what I was saying. Where it's intense here, it was intense here. Where it was light here, it was light here. Where there was no color, it stayed light. It didn't absorb from the bottom. Where we had that little bit of shimmer, it has shimmer. So the cool thing about Texture Paste Opaque when you put it on is it's just like all of the beautiful greens that we do, right? Starting with, you know, Cracked Pistachio, or like this one that has the mica. See, that was Wicked Elixir, but we could also use Distress Spritz, which I'm going to do on this other background. But I was saying just taking colors, that still means it's wet. So I could either dry it or just quickly edit. Okay, background one. Now we're going to do different stencil, but same paste, because now we're really just going to go for it, because I want you to see how crazy you can actually get with colors. Okay. It's a beautiful stencil, isn't it? This is one of the stencils. It's part of like, oh gosh, where are they now? Like a trio that Paula asked me to do in the line. Yeah, these three. They're pretty. She asked me to do these a while ago. I'm like, I don't even understand the design. And now I have to admit, like, I do love the backgrounds. It's kind of very wallpapery. They're pretty in metallics too.
Those are beautiful.
They're pretty. All right, let's work on this one. Now I'm just going to go in with, I think I will just take the stains. I'm going to do stains and spritz on this one, and we'll compare the two. So this, do you have to add water? No, let's not add water to this one. We'll see the difference. Water is just what gave this a little bit more blend right from go, because remember, all the products I used to color were reactive with water. But if we just start with just color on there, it's no problem. We can definitely do that. Intense color. Oh, that's, well, I don't mind. I don't mind adding a little bit of Rusty Hinge. I won't add much. There you go. See, just a couple of blasts on it. We'll do some purple. That'll be fun up there. This is villainous, so you got to respect the villain. Villainous potion is like, it means serious business. A little Stormy Sky will be there. That'll be good. I don't think I want any cracked. What do I want? I know what I want. I want what I just talked about. A color that I don't have. I mean, I have it. It's just not here, and I don't need to get it. So I'm just going to put some of that color there. Just add a little bit of water. That was just some picked raspberry. I'm just gonna just pick up some of that pink there. I just wanted a little bit of kind of pink softening in there. And then we'll add a little bit more yellow. And we're gonna start drying. We're gonna come back to this. We're far from over. I'm just gonna start drying it. Because I'm gonna just show you like adding and adding and adding is like so crazy. Absolutely love this. All right, now do you have to let this dry completely before we add the next layer? No, absolutely not, we don't. We can just keep adding. And this light color, this is actually saltwater taffy. So yeah, I'm gonna still stick with it. Or no, this is worn lipstick. I'm just gonna stick with it just because I wanna keep showing you how intense we can get. There's some crushed, we'll add some crushed there. I'm gonna go back to the villain because that's where I wanted to just kind of freak your freak. Villainous Potion is, it just means business and I'm here for it. I love it. Little Stormy Sky. I'm gonna go back and add a little bit more squeeze. And I think I'm gonna add, I know I've got one over here. Yeah, a little cocktail party. Wasn't gonna add mica stain because I want to add spritz, but that's okay. All right, let's add some, woo, I knew that was gonna be it. Yeah. Hello. Okay, so this is looking like a hot mess, and we're here for it because I'll explain like why I'm just going so overboard. Because let's face it, sometimes when we're adding stuff, that's just the way it is. You just add color and you just can't stop. That's okay. This is what's really amazing about this particular paste. It will take and it will give back. Okay. So this, I'm just going to dry. Now, because I have all those colors, I'm getting a little sludge on the end. I'm never too bothered by that, but if you are, like, you know, if you don't want that sludge to be there, you can just take a little paper towel and you can edit that before you dry it. See how like it'll just take that color and it'll reveal what's underneath. Even though there was a line of purple there, if you don't dry it, you'll be able to take that off. So while I'm here, let me just get rid of all this excess ink. Okay, let's add some spritz to this as well, because right now it's pretty, but I want to add a lot more shine to it. So Distress Spritz it's just going to be a mica spray. It's not going to have any colorant like the mica stain, so it's going to allow me to add a really cool coordinating color into that area. So these are just clear with a matching color of mica. So you can see when they lay here, like all the mica is there, and then it's just clear sludge up there. So we gotta shake them up. Make sure you don't have any sludge at the bottom. All right, I'm gonna spray, and so I'm pretty much going like color for color, if you will. Like I'm going blue into blue. You don't have to do it that way. You can go however you want that to work for you. And I'll do a little peeled paint. We'll do a little picked raspberry, and we'll do a little fossilized amber. Just mixing them up. All right, so we'll start Villainous. A little purple there, a little purple there. And I would normally wipe off the schnozzles, and I will when I'm done after the live because I don't want these to clog. A little green. I'm gonna do some there. And then fossilized amber. So even though I used, you know, you don't have to use color for color. I'm just doing something a little similar. And then, yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit more on the top of that tumbled glass. Okay, so right now, not much is going on here. But you'll see when I dry it, that's when we start getting the shine. The beauty of this particular paste, and again, we're talking about texture paste opaque, is that you can just keep adding and adding and adding, and it will take it just like the paper below it, okay? That to me is what is so amazing about this medium. So this, I mean, you can just like, the paper is just soaked right now. There's just so much, look, there's so much liquid on it, but that's okay. I think that's cool. But I want to point out a couple of things that you need to be aware of. When you work on paper, I mean, this paper is just, it's lifeless right now because it's soaked. It will dry out. But if you soak your paper so much that the color is bleeding through, your paste will start to roll off. Okay, and that's not because it can't bond to it, but now like it's essentially trying to put paste on a wet paper towel, okay? Even though it was dry on the paper. So there is a limit to how wet you want your surface to be at one time. It doesn't mean you couldn't get it this intense. It would just mean that you dry it more in between instead of just what I was doing. I was intentionally just hosing it down in the hopes of trying to get some of this to lift. It doesn't all come off, but it's just something to be aware of if you're using it and you're like, why is it doing that? That's the purpose of this whole series, is to answer those questions that just might happen that you don't see. Because, you know, when you see a demo happen on live, typically you see a demo like in its flawless kind of, well, not for me, rehearsed way, you know, where it's like, I know this is going to work. But, you know, there's things that happen where it's like, why is my stuff all of a sudden coming off? Well, okay, that's because I got everything too wet, okay? That's okay. I'm just going to let this dry. And we're going to go back to this one. Okay, so this one's long dry. You can see it's much flatter. It's ready to go. But here's one of the things that I love about the paste, and it would work on either one of these for the record. Once you add something, this paste will also take it back. So if you, or give it back. So if I go in with water on a paper towel, just slightly damp, I can touch an area. So you see this area that's dark here? I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna press that down and I'm gonna lift that off. And did you see how it just lightened the color? And I can repeat this as many times as I want, and it will lift the color, which creates, in my opinion, a beautiful highlight. So see right here how it all looks like the same color? I love that you'd start with a clean part of your paper towel. Don't go into the same. Again, a little bit of water. A baby wipe is too wet for this. You just need just a little water to reactivate the ink. But we want the absorption of the paper towel to give some of that color back. And that's what's going to create these highlights. And I love that about this paste. I love the fact that I can create, even though I'm spraying color, I can still create so much more depth in my background just by removing some of that color. I think that's really, really cool. And this is where you can just play. And when I talk about that, it just means sit down and play with your backgrounds and don't have any intention of what to do with them yet. Get that little tin or pocket or whatever about that background, because you'll be able to then just rummage through it and go, oh, that's cool, I'll use that. Oh, that's fun, I'll use that. Instead of trying to create something for this intended purpose in your head. Because let's face it, as creatives, when we set out to make something exactly how it is in our mind, rarely does it work the first time. We get frustrated. So that's one of the things I like. So this one, it'll just dry on its own, but yeah, look at that spritz. Oh my gosh, it makes all of that stuff just pop on there. And I love that we can add it over the color. So, all right, let's set those aside. Ooh, this one's drying nicely. Look at that. Remember those snowflakes with speckled egg? That's our sparkle. It's drying. Okay. Let's bring in a little bit more from the pile. I think I had some other ones. Oh, these are the ones I was looking at. So this is just what I showed you, where I just sprayed colors. Now you get it. This is opaque texture paste. Same thing, right? You can guess that's distress spritz, because this was all different colors and I didn't use blue ink. So I used blue spritz to add the blue. And isn't that cool? How like when you look at it, it's just all the different colors, but then I love how it just travels down. It's fun just to play. Another fun background, where is it? I could have sworn I saw it. Here it is. This is a fun one. This where it just looks like paint marks. See where you have like, let's say you were doing a journal page or mixed media and you wanted like little cool brush strokes. You could mix your paste and you could just apply them with a paintbrush, but this one's actually just done with a stencil. That's just brush strokes. So this was just about taking a stencil, inking it with all the different colors, just taking, you know, take your little blending brushes, blending tools. You can just ink with whatever inks you want, clean off your stencil because you would have ink on it, place it down, and then just do translucent texture paste, because we already know that it's gloss and clear, over the whole thing, let it dry, and then when you're done, it's going to look like you have these dimensional textural paint strokes. Because see, even that little texture in the paste, isn't that cool? Just a cool background. And then you could ink this again, because now these are really protected. So you could go in and ink blend and that pink will not be touched because it's sealed by the texture paste. It's kind of cool. All right. Just ideas. It's all about ideas. Okay. Doing good so far, Mario? All right. All right. I'm going to keep going as long as we're good with that. Let's talk about this one. Talk about translucent real quick, and then I'm going to show you some other samples. Okay, if you have translucent paste on whatever it is that you're doing, we can use different colorants, but you need to be mindful. So I brought out Oxide because I want to show you Oxide for this. But then I'm going to just bring out some other colors as well. I think that'll be good. I'm fine with that. Just to show you. So a translucent paste on any surface is going to be really cool because it's going to be just a nice, quick resist. So here I'm just going to put some color down. That just happens to be spray. I can do some water. I can let that drip down a little bit and we can dry it. I'm just going to, again, show you this in stages just so you can see where we're going with this. Now, do you have to dry with a heat tool? No, you can let it air dry. But the more you understand about why different things exist is fun, because you can say in your brain, it's like, oh, well, I could put clear embossing ink through a stencil, put clear embossing powder, emboss it and create the resist. You absolutely could. But the fact that it's paste means, one, I'm going to get a little bit more dimension and texture, and two, it's just going to give me a much thicker resist than embossing powder would. But there's always options in the creative world. Okay, so when I talk about it being a resist, you can see that the spray ink, even though this isn't totally dry, is like beaded up on the top of this. You can go in with just a paper towel. You can dab that off over the top. Okay, that's fine. And we can also wipe it clean, but we're going to keep going because I'm not done adding color. Let's add a little bit of cracked pistachio. Now, cracked pistachio on craft, because spray stains are translucent, it's not going to be as vivid as it should, which is why I'm going to oxides. Oxides are a dye and a pigment, but they are opaque. Okay, let's go into some salvage patina. That's going to be fun. So let's add some of that. Ooh, we can see where it's going already. Who doesn't love a good patina? Come on. I do. All right, going to do some more rusty hinge, and I'm just adding that. That's spray stain. We're going to add, what is this one? Oh, peeled paint. We'll do a little bit of peeled paint. Don't want it too green. So oxide sprays you have to shake because it is a dye and pigment. Oh, I do like that color. The dyes you don't have to shake because, well, they're dyes. They just stay fluid. All right, I think I'm good with that. Let's see where we're at. Let's dry and see what's going to happen. So if you're new to this, I did see a comment about new to this. If you're totally new to stamping and this has no interest to you, like, I wouldn't start here. You know, start with basic blending or stamping or whatever. But if you're new more to the mixed media world, the thing about mixed media or sprays or paste, it can be intimidating if you don't actually do it. So my advice is to pick like one or two mediums and just jump in, because once you do it yourself, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, all that stuff I see on YouTube, it's not as scary as it looks, but I get it. I've watched so many different technique videos where when I see all the stuff going on, I'm like, holy moly, that's going to freak my freak. There's no way that I'm going to remember to do all this. How do I know all the steps? But once you do it, it just, I don't know, just sticks into your memory. And then you realize that it's really not as scary. Okay, I'm going to start dabbing some of this and I'm going to keep drying because I want this to be totally dry when I show you this. But there's always a fear factor, but I think doing it definitely gets that out of your head. Another thing to remember when you are drying, like once you get to the stage where the majority of your background is dry, it's helpful if you can pick it up, because if the heat can pass through your paper, it will dry in half the time. When your paper stays flat, especially on glass, you're trapping the moisture between the glass and the paper, and it just seems like it's taking forever to dry. So just pick up the paper, and if you're sensitive to heat or if your paper is small, like get yourself a little pair of hot hands, like they're little silicone. Yes, these are, they're real. But see, like then I can hold this and those little silicone hands, it won't be as hot. Because, you know, sometimes I'm not paying attention and it does get really toasty. Okay. So this is where we're at for our background. Now, keep in mind that when you heat this, like you were, because it's shiny, it's going to get a little sticky at first. So give it like just a few seconds to cool before you get in and touch it, because you don't want it to just like all come off on your hands. But here's what you need to understand. All of that stuff that's sitting on the top, it's dry, but it's going to be reactive with water. So my advice to you is, if you were going to create this, is to take off some of that layer. Not all of it, but some of it. So I'm just going to go back in with my damp paper towel, and I'm just going to start like lifting some of this off, just to create like just a little bit more organic-y kind of background. See, there we go. Then if we wanted to add some contrast, We could take a dark color of ink. Let's take a little bit of distress. Now with the release of mini distress oxides, I now pair them up, buddy. I've got ink and oxide of the same color. I'm here for that. I absolutely love it. But here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna actually take my ink. I'm gonna squish some of that down. I'm gonna take some black soot because I wanna create a darker color. And then I'm gonna take a little brush. I already have mine color coded. I just used some acrylic paint on that. There's a video on how we did that. And I'm just gonna take the brush, pick up some of this color, and I'm just gonna start like just brushing around, just not on the whole thing. I just wanna get some contrast in some of the areas. And then you'll see, I'm even gonna go back and lift some of that off. I just wanna show you properties of paints. Translucent is really fun because of its resist properties, but also I love the fact that we can add so many different layers to things and it just evolves right before your eyes, okay? We're just gonna pull that up, cap it, and go back in that little stand. All right, let's flick some water on this. So here I'm just gonna go in with water just to create some drips. Dry this for a second. I'm watching, like, I don't know if I've answered all the questions. Okay, is it ever beneficial to dry from the underside? It's always beneficial if you find that works for you. I just find that when I hold it up, I guess it's essentially doing the same thing. I know sometimes for embossing, people like to dry from the underside so it doesn't blow the paper, but I always just dry from the top. That's how I've always done it, but I've also always held up the paper. All right, so here's where we took a piece of craft that had just a simple pattern in translucent, and we were able to just completely modify it so many different ways, right? So now we get the shine and the texture, but my gosh, we've got color, we've got this milky, creamy, dreamy, we know where that came from, oxide spray. We've got these little dark, shadowy stains, we know where that came from, squishing the little ink pad in the brush. And then we've got these great little splatters, we know where that came from, water. So my point is, a texture, any texture medium, is just that. It's a texture medium. You as the maker create the magic. Turn that into patina, turn that into something bright and colorful, turn that into something sparkly. That's where you come in. That's where all of your other little colorants make a texture come alive. That to me is, I think, the important thing that we have to remember. So I hope you've established a great baseline, because now I'm just gonna go into things that are a little bit more, I'm not gonna say confusing, but just some visual swatches that at least you'll be able to come back and create it. Can you seal the colors with distress glaze? You can't put micro glaze on top of the paste because it's still gonna rub off when it gets wet. But yes, you can seal sprays with distress micro glaze the same way you would seal ink. Absolutely, you could. Okay, let's see. Let's put this, can you use the same brush for oxide and distress? You should not use the same. You could use the same brush, yes, but you have to clean it every single time you're going from oxide back to distress. So you could do that, but you have to clean it. Otherwise, no. You would want something dedicated. And that is, honestly, I'm glad you asked that question. So these brushes right now, this little set, this is my dedicated set for mini oxides. This has oxide on it. I don't have a set for my inks yet. I just haven't gotten around to do it, but I will have a set dedicated to my distress inks as well. But because I wanted to use ink, did you see what I did, my little trickery? I squished the ink pad down. Then I could use an oxide brush because there's nothing to contaminate, because I put my ink on my glass. So it doesn't matter what was on the brush, because I knew that, like, you could use an oxide brush with ink, but you couldn't use your ink brush on oxide. That makes sense. It kind of contaminates it. So I got this from Simon Says Stamp. It's cool, isn't it? I have one for big ones too. All right, great questions. Does paste adhere to vellum? Yes, Carolyn, paste adheres to all the things that I talked about at the beginning: wood, metal, paper, glass, vellum, like you name it. It's designed to bond to whatever surface you put it on. So definitely have a good time. Josephine, I will demo frosted crystal for sure. Let me just finish paste, but I promise you, I have it right here. So I got you. Let me just go into these colors real quick, just because I want to explain, let's see, which paste stick. Oh, I asked and answered that. Okay, so let's just talk about translucent and opaque, because now we've really covered a lot of the basics as to, you know, how the Crackle cracks and all the different things that you can do. But essentially, when you're deciding on what kind of paste, and that doesn't matter whether it's going to be texture paste, translucent or opaque, if it's going to be grit paste, or if it's going to be Crackle paste, really choosing which version, it depends on what your expectation or outcome is, okay? That to me is the most important thing to remember. That's why we have so many options. There's a reason and a place for everything, but like as I showed at the very beginning, each of these have a different texture, because you might be like, well, why don't we just have one opaque paste? Well, this is going to be more fluffy, this is going to be gritty, and this one's going to crack. So the effect is different, but also the base is important, especially if you're going to color with things like embossing glaze. So this one is where, this is that technique that, you know, we did this technique here, we did this technique here. This one happens to be done with Crackle, but this technique can be done with any of the pastes using your embossing glazes, because this one looks like glass, this one looks like cracked enamel, but it's important to know which one to start with, and ultimately that depends on what your expectations are, okay? So first things first, we will talk about using opaque. So these samples happen to be done using just texture, but my point is, it doesn't really matter what the effect is. I just wanted to show you from a color base. So this was white cardstock that I just put opaque paste through a stencil, took off the stencil. While the paste is wet, you go into your paste. And I won't do a full one. I'll do it for literally like a second so you get the idea. Is that fair enough? Because I want to get through, I don't want to get hung up on every technique. Mario, there's another video. That link that I sent you this morning,
yeah, sure.
Could you post that? I've done several videos on texture paste where I really go into techniques more. So I don't want you to think like I'm doing shortcuts, but Asked and Answered is really like, I'm trying to get this Q&A as much as possible, but still giving you some visual to, because sometimes you have to show it to see it. Okay. Let's see, is my Crackle paste too dry if it's flaking off after drying? It's either too dry when you applied it, or the surface you're putting it on is slick, and it has nothing to grab. It doesn't have enough tooth. So those could be the two variables. Let's talk about that real quick. If you find that your paste is dry, there's no bringing it back to life. I read in, you know, on social media, in the Facebook groups and all that, like, oh, my paste is dry, can I add water? Yeah, you can add water, but is that going to bring it back to being a paste? No. If your paste is still, like, let's just say it has viscosity, but you want it a little watery, you know, like maybe it started to dry, yes, you can add a little moisture back into it and mix it up. But if your paste has already dried in here or formed a crust of any kind, it's done. And you just think about it this way. We designed paste that when you use it and it dries, it sticks to the surface. It's not designed to reconstitute when it's wet. And if it gets too wet, it's just going to become chunks. So taking a dry jar of paste and trying to add water and stir it up, it'll become something, but it won't ever become that paste again. But if it's a little thicker than you want, then yeah, you can totally do that. All right, I got to keep going because this is the distress storage tin.
Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, so I just applied that. You want to work a little quicker than what I was doing right now, but I was just trying to give me the opportunity to answer that. Okay, I'm going to lift off this stencil. Then while this paste is wet, I'm going to take a piece of scrap paper. Could be any kind of scrap paper. Let's stay in frame. There we go. Oh my gosh, get rid of this purple thing. Perfect. Now you can use whatever colors you want. Let's say we want to just do a quick rainbowy blend of colors. I won't do all the colors. Let's just say we're going to just do these. Okay. In fact, I'll probably just going to open these up. These are distress embossing glaze. These are translucent. Could you do this with regular embossing powder? Yes. If you use regular embossing powder, everything I'm about to show you or talk to you about is not important anymore, because regular embossing powders are opaque colors, so you can put them on whatever, whenever, however. This is specific to glaze, and in fact, what I'm going to tell you. Okay, you'll see in a minute. I used to use my fingers, but I don't have enough powder in the jars anymore, so that's why I'm just using little spoons. These are from Ideology, so I'm just going to sprinkle on some color, wipe that off, wipe off the little static, do a little bit more of that color, put that back, a little bit more of that color, let's see, a little orange, that'll be good. I don't need tons of it. I mean, I'm probably even putting down more than I need. So I'm just a little sprinkle. There we go. That's going to be good. Little green. And I'm just showing you the extreme. The point is, you could have done this with one color, but if you were using embossing glaze, which I absolutely love, it's very cool to create an effect like this. So now I'm just going to quickly put the lids on all these because I don't want to spill them. Just to get that part out of the way because I just need a little bit more work, and then I'll put the lids on these. So once I have the powder on there, from underneath, I'm going to do a little tap dance just with my fingers. Just moving that powder around. Just the vibration of my fingers. Just, it's like a little tap dance. And then I'm turning the paper away from the jars. I don't want to get that in there. And then I'm letting all that fall off. So that's what I have. I have this blended background of powder, and we're going to let this dry. It needs to dry. So if you wouldn't mind, Mario.
Sure.
And then maybe those other ones are ready to come back in so I don't forget them. Okay. Thanks. All right, I'm just going to cap these. So what do you do with all this? Well, it's really a party mix. You could save it. You could do whatever you want to create, or you can just dump it out. These spoons are part of this Ideology silverware pack. You actually get little forks and knives. They're great embellishments, but they are a perfect little spoon. Suppose you can use a lot of little spoons for that. Okay, so this stuff, like I said, it now becomes a party mix because it's translucent. If you try to emboss it all together, it does turn into mud. Okay, so you would let that dry. Once it dries, you would heat emboss it, okay? And this is where we end up with these samples. Boom, back to this. So now you've seen how I've done my color, okay? So once you heat emboss it, you have a dimensional enameled look. This, when it's white paste, opaque texture paste, whether I did it on white cardstock, crafts, or black, the color is all the same. Why is the color all the same? Because the base is white. This is where it's important to know which type of paste you want to use depending on what surface you're putting it on. This same swatch is done the same way, except I used translucent paste. But now because my paste is translucent, on white, it looks the same. Because really, I'm seeing the white paper shine through my color. Craft, not the same, because my paste is translucent. Now it's picking up the brown paper, and even though this is a tinted translucent embossing powder, it's picking up that brown. So it's a brownish pink or a brownish hot pink. Black, disaster, because now it's picking up black through a translucent pink that you can barely see here or there, but it doesn't really work. So the technique works with either one, but it's what your end result needs to be and what powder you're using. If you were using opaque embossing powder, it wouldn't matter because opaque powder is going to show up on anything because it's opaque. But translucent colors like glaze, it's just important to understand that when you're working with it, if you're working on a darker surface, you probably want to work with an opaque paste, be that texture, crackle, or grit. Remember, this technique will work with any of these pastes. That's what I'm going to show you next. The paste is going to be like however you want to work with it. Question, should I store my sprays upright or on their side? Upright. Sprays, just if you leave them on their sides too long, they just have a tendency to start leaking out the schnozzle, I think. So, okay. So that was my hopefully not convoluted, understandable demo on when you do translucent and when you want opaque. I hope you guys understand that, and I will emboss that in a minute. Which brings me to this. Are you guys with me? I hope so. I hope it's not too crazy. The first one we talked about was using embossing glaze, so translucent. So what makes this so magical is I went in with like a rust embossing glaze, salvage patina, cracked pistachio, brown. I mimicked my ink colors with glaze. That's why this literally looks like glass. But if you have an opaque embossing powder, these are all metallics. These are Ranger. You can use gold or platinum or copper. This is like my go-to when I want metallic paste, because to me, metallic paste, and again, this is not to diss anybody's paste. What I find challenging about metallic paste is I don't like the elasticity of the paste, meaning when I put it on, it's almost very stretchy, and it doesn't really look, it's more pearlescent than metallic. There I'm gonna say that. So I'm using that same kind of embossing powder idea, but the texture paste actually give you so many more options for how your metallic actually looks, because embossing powders, if you've ever embossed with metallic, maybe those of you that were stamping, this is how a lot of us like, we're hooked from go. You see this stuff melt and it's like this molten beauty. That's what I love about embossing powder. So it's like, I mean, even Ranger's like, you want metallic paste? I'm like, nope, I don't. Because nothing is going to make me happier than using metallic powders on a paste. So here are my swatches. Let's bring them in one by one. This first one is opaque texture paste. You can see that the metallic is like super dimensional, super reflective, but still has the ins and outs of the texture paste, because most metallics self-level and dry fairly smooth. So I love the kind of ins and outs of this. This next one is translucent. Now, I would say that texture paste translucent and texture paste opaque in the metallic realm are fairly similar. I find I get a smoother look with opaque than I did translucent. See, the translucent gives me a little orange peel, but I would say these are pretty close. I prefer always using texture paste opaque if I want a smooth, more raised finish, because this is more dimensional than the translucent version. It's just fluffier, okay? But either one will work, but beautiful. But then we start getting into cool things. What if we went and did black? Well, what I love about black is that when I do the metallic, I just kind of sprinkle it. I don't cover it. So I leave some of that black powder visible, and it just makes it look more weathered or antiqued. Still works. And I suppose if I would have covered it completely, it would have probably mimicked this one. But because I sprinkled it, you can see that these, like, it just has more shadow, more dark, because my paste was dark. Again, fun swatches to do just to remind you. But then things get crazy, because enter the world of grit. Grit is just that. It's meant to have grit. So the grit with metallic is like nuggety, molten, hello, beautiful. Like, you see how gritty and grungy these are? It's just like old, rotted metal. And this happens to be in gold because I wanted to show you comparisons. There's no fair comparison if I mixed colors, but imagine this being like liquid platinum on grit, and then you went in with crayon or spray, and these just look all pitted and gross. Very cool. But see, it's the same embossing powder, so how am I getting a different texture in metallic? Well, I used a different paste. But now it's not just a metallic paste. It's the same grit paste that I could create rust and create all the different things with it. That's what I love about using embossing powders, which the majority of us have. All right, so that's grit paste opaque. Grit paste translucent, well, now that just became like this molten thing. I mean, they even kind of started oozing out a little bit. I don't know what was in this stuff, but when I started heating it, even though it was dry, it's almost like these stars kind of started to melt, which I was okay with. But yeah, they're kind of fluffy and gooey, where this was more like gritty and nuggety. But again, yeah, you can see how that, like, that's more puffy and that's just chunky. Anyway, very cool. Then I was surprised by Crackle, because, oh yeah, I'm like, could I crack the metallic? I thought I could. Well, I tried my first one, and then I was like, snap, that didn't work. So I tried Crackle translucent. No, but you know what? What I liked about it is actually gave me a pretty nice finish, but not crackled. Just gave me a nice finish. So if you're looking for just regular, nice, smooth, not as thick as opaque, but pretty similar, Crackle translucent, that worked really well. But Crackle opaque, now where am I? Here we go. Holy moly. This is like, reminds me of one of those games, like those shell games, like watch the ball. Okay, take a look at this. Look at that cracked metallic. Holy smokes. Now, I shouldn't be surprised, because obviously that technique that we learned from Stacy about doing embossing glaze certainly works for Crackle. I just wasn't sure it would work with metallic, because metallic powders have so much pigment in it, but I love it. And this I've not even put any color in it yet. Like when I spray this with brown or rub crayon, like the cracks are going to be highlighted even more. But how beautiful that it's still metallic, still reflective, but has the shatter. So I'm picturing like mercury glass already. You know, now I'm like, oh man, I'm going to do like platinum or silver over the whole thing. And then I'll go in and do some sort of sprays over it to color them. I mean, yeah.
I
Just good. So just this little playtime was a stencil, a jar of embossing powder, and just seeing what it looked like over the different pastes. And I love having all of these little options because I wouldn't say that one is a clear winner. It just depends on what am I going for. So I encourage you to do that if you're looking for that thing. And it doesn't have to be metallic. Let's say you wanted something like red. You were doing cherries on a background and you had a cherry stencil and you had a beautiful cherry red embossing powder. Same rules apply. This is just metallic for the sake of the wow factor and the color, and that everybody asks, like, why haven't I done metallic paste? Well, that's why, because there's so many metallic powders out there and cool different effect ones. I just love that, but I get to start with the same base that I could tint and paint over and ink. And for me, just like, I try to keep it basic as I can. Okay.
To get rid of stuff,
I think I'm good right now. I'm going to go back to these black ones. I have not forgotten frosted crystal. I'm still watching the chat. You guys are awesome. Okay. There's our lightning. Oh my gosh. It's dry. Let's see. Where's the black light? Let's see. Oh my gosh. Look at that. Look at the lightning.
looked like last night.
So cool, right? What a great stencil. So that's a fun one. But that could also have been done with the metallic. So if you're like, I want my lightning to be like silver metallic. Okay. Then now you know which paste you want to use, and then you could put silver embossing powder and then emboss it. But yeah, that's glow in the dark right there. Okay. Black is just fun because when you use it, it doesn't absorb the color like these do. Even though it's black and it's opaque and you're like, oh, isn't it supposed to absorb the color? Yes, but no, because the dyes, it does absorb it, but you can't see any of the colors because it's black, but you can see the shimmer, the shine of spritz or mica stain, okay? So for this one real quick, we're just gonna add some colors and we're gonna move on. But I do wanna just let's just play with these few mica stains. We're gonna do a little purple. Now this could be done with distressed spritz, just the same. But if you're going to do distressed spritz, you would want to do stain and then spritz. But mica stain is kind of where everything started. You know, it's a stain that already has a pearl. These did not come back this year. We're actually going to take a little hiatus of, Ranger's not going to be manufacturing mica stains for a while. I'm not going to say ever again, but just for a while, just because there's so many other things, like with the release of the, you know, mini oxides and all that. But these are still out in the marketplace. So if you have a retailer that still has them and you like them, now's a good time to pick them up, because usually after a year or so of them not being around, it'd be bad. If you put embossing powder over the glow, would it still glow? It would not glow. The reason is that embossing powder is opaque, and opaque means we can't see through it. So it would not glow with metallic. If you used embossing glaze, then yes, because embossing glaze is translucent. Hope that helped. All right, these, gosh, these are relics I haven't used in a long time. Amy, so glad I have them all. It gives me anxiety. I'm with you. I'm happy I have them, and honestly, I have a backup. Thanks, Mario. I have a backup of each one, but I only need one because I'll be honest. I use a lot more spritz than I do stain now, just because I can have a different ink undertone and a different spritz top tone. But yeah, okay, cool. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I'm just going to spray a bunch of Halloweenness on this because why not? Just so we can see it. All right, a little bit of that. A little bit of that, like why not? Because mica stains, really, it has some juicy, intense colorants. All right, a little blue. I'm gonna go back to this one because this one's rocking my world. Ooh, yeah. All right, then we're gonna save. Actually, if I do iron gate, it's gonna muddy it. So now I'll do a little spritz at the end. Okay. Did you guys hear that? That was me just dumping it in there.
The Gothic stencil, can you give me the number?
Which one?
The Gothic one?
Oh.
No,
it's I haven't used it, so it's going to be in the dry portion over there.
Okay, I'll find it. 'Cause someone asked before and I forgot.
Oh, sorry.
Give me just a sec, I'll find it.
All right. Did you get it?
It's this one.
That's all right. Here, I'll put that in the water.
Yeah, it's this one, right?
Yep. I'm getting on my palette knives in the water too.
149.
149. Yeah, so on my stencils, because that little number is actually etched in the bottom of the stencil, to make all the numbers visible, I just took a little black paint on my finger and just rubbed it over the top because the paint stays permanent and then I can read them. So that's how all my numbers are visible, because every time I do a demo, you know, you ask and it's like, if it was just etched, and you'll see on your stencils, it's so hard to read. So a little black paint, if you ever care what your stencils are, or if you use the index on timholtz.com, it's free. It's a great way to just go into the index, click products, click Stampers Anonymous, go to stencils, and then you can see all the stencils by number and design, and then you'll remember what you have because you can actually inventory what you have from that thing. And you can use it on your computer or on your phone. It's cool. All right, we're just still drying this. Little plug for the index, because the index is free, and that's how I use the index every day, and it's my own stuff. And not to see what I have because I have it all. It's just to remember, like, oh, like when I was picking out stencils for this demo, I literally use the index. I went into the index, I clicked the little heart of everything that I wanted, and then I emailed that list to myself, and then I had my list to pull my stencils for the demo, because you can do that too. You can actually email your wish list, your inventory list. It's like, it's freaking cool. So that's how I do it. I use it all the time. Otherwise, honestly, how could you remember all this stuff? There's just too much stuff over 20 years. Okay, I added a little bit of water just because I want some more movement. I added a lot of color, but like water on this, you know, I'm adding some big drips, and so now I'm just going to get a little heavier with the water. I'm going to pick this up just to get some tears of goodness. See, look at that, little Halloween tears. And then I'll dry it, and then we'll look at it, because what you're going to see, it's really interesting how the mica stains, or just mica in general, and the black is just so cool because it takes on the shimmer, the shine of that. It's beautiful. Yeah, shout out to Zoe and Neil.
Yeah.
They are the gurus of the index. Zoe Hillman maintains it all the time, and Neil is actually the one that wrote it and created it. He also maintains it when things go south, but it hasn't. It's really cool. It's just nice because it has it for all the Tim Holtz stuff. All right, there you go. Do you have some tips on texture paste on metal ideology? Just use it. Just like if you want something a little gritty, take a little grit paste on your finger and rub it onto, say, a metallic charm or like a tombstone or anything like that. Go for it. So did you see how like boring this was down here? And then did you see just for that second when I picked it up and I did that and you're like, what? That's the magic of it. You see what mica stain does? So mica stain, not only does it color, but it flows, it kind of creates a buildup. So anyway, I'm trying to do two different thoughts. So ideology stuff, really just, I apply it more with my fingers, like Crypt paste, grit. You can do a little crackle on vignettes. The makers that made for ideology, they have great tutorials on their blog from years past about like how to crackle a vignette box and, you know, how to put things on paper dolls. I mean, there's so many cool things that we can create. It's just awesome. So the index is called the index because I wanted to call it something, but you don't go to timholtz.com and look for something that says the index. You just click products and you're in the index. But if you go to timholtz.com and you type in the search bar index, you can actually watch a video and learn all about it. It's free. It's cool. It's a great way to keep track of everything and see all your stamps and stencils. And anyway, there's black. Cool, right? I just love how that mica, and so this would work exactly the same if you did spray stain and spritz if you didn't have mica stain. Wild. I do love black, especially for Halloween. Okay, so far so good. We're doing all right?
Doing great.
All right, let me jump to Frosted Crystal. I hope whoever asked Frosted Crystal is still watching, because if not, she's probably like, jerk, I asked, she's done. But really, this kind of needs its own space, because it's not really a paste and it's not a glitter, but it is such a cool product that I really wanted it in the Distress line. Frosted Crystal is an embossing powder that Ranger had. It's a regular jar of embossing powder, but the way I use it, I just wanted a bigger jar of it. So that's why Mario, oh, I can grab it. Yeah, right. No, I got it. Thanks. Sure. I just wanted a bigger jar of it. So essentially what Frosted Crystal is, it is a translucent embossing powder that when you apply it and you heat it to melt it, it will create a matte frosted texture. Now, typically embossing powders don't do that. Embossing powders are liquid, right? When you melt it, they become liquid and they become shiny. They become enamel. That's why we love embossing powder, because the shine or the reflectiveness. Frosted crystal is not like that. You can apply this to anything that you would apply embossing powder to, meaning, could I stamp an image and apply frosted crystal and emboss it? Yes. So what would be the benefits of that? Well, it's clear, but instead of that embossed image being shiny, the embossed image would be frosted matte. It would also have a little texture, and we say texture because when something's frosted, like, you know, a piece of frosted glass, it just has that little bit of texture to it. Not texture in the sense of grit paste or crackle, but definitely a frosted texture. If you had something, say, shiny, maybe it was a piece of ideology layers, you know, that's out of that coated paper. You can take that coated paper, you would apply your embossing ink, apply frosted crystal, and when you emboss it, it turns that glossy cardstock into matte frosted texture. It gives it a matte finish. So it's also a cool product to turn something from shiny to matte. One of the techniques that I like to do with it, so in other words, there's so many things you can do with this besides what I'm going to share with you. This is a fun technique I did years ago in creative chemistry. I even think we did it at Ranger U back in the day. And it's using frosted crystal to create a faux chalkboard looking design. And I just find this technique really fun, really satisfying. It's not for everybody, and it's not for every stamp under the sun, but it's certainly freaking cool if you love the idea of creating a chalkboard. Question, will the old style of embossing powder, I don't know what that means, Lisa, sorry. If you can maybe ask that a different way, I don't know what old style of embossing powder is. Anyway, so let's get into how we create frosted crystal. So we're gonna start with, I was gonna say we start with the stamp. Oh, look, there's our black crackle. That's good. Just gonna take these stamps.
I'll take this.
Thank you. All right, so I'm just gonna do a blueprint. You could do this with really whatever stamp you wanna create this effect on. But there's so many blueprint stamps I did with Stampers Anonymous. Mario's son drew all of these. They come in big and they come in mini. This one was a snowman. It's great, but I really want to do a coffee one because I just do, because I want a coffee one. So I'm just gonna put that stamp onto a block. Okay. As far as paper, look, you can use whatever black cardstock you have. They're all going to give you different. These are two different ones. This one is just regular black cardstock that I had in my file drawer, and it works great. This is distressed black heavy stock, which if you've ever used it is kind of suede-y. And to me, I love the, I guess, saturation of this black, and it feels more like a chalkboard. So that's what I'm doing, but I just want to be clear, like, it works on any kind of black cardstock. It just depends on how you want your chalkboard to look. There we go. Okay, so let me, let's see. I could have sworn I had paper already cut, and then, let's see. I'll just use a piece. This will work. I thought I had something smaller cut, but maybe I don't. Oh yeah, I do. Okay, that's smaller. I want to waste the stuff. The black cardstock's good, but it's not for the faint of heart on your wallet. It's pricey, but you get what you pay for. It is beautiful. Okay, frosted crystal, a stamp. We're going to also need embossing ink, any kind of embossing ink. I'm using Distress, but you can use Versamark or whatever you have. And good old school chalk. None of this fancy toity stuff. Chalk sticks, chalk powder. Honestly, school chalk is going to be the best. Okay, we don't really want art chalk. It's just something about the cheap chalk is going to work the best for you. Okay, so that's what I've got. Those are my ingredients. Here we go. We're going to take this, because you have to learn stuff about embossing with frosted crystal all along. So I'm going to just take my ink pad, tappity tap, get a nice layer, no squishy. It's a foam pad, but we want to still tappity tap. We're going to have a piece of scrap paper at the ready for my embossing before I even stamp the stamp. Okay. Then we're just going to stamp the image. So obviously I would have stamped in a smaller piece, but just for the sake of the live, we're going to use this piece. Stamp it. Frosted crystal. Apply frosted crystal. Tappity tap with the jar. No flick. Do not worry about this haze. I don't do anti-static. I don't do any of that. But if that's your jam, you do you. But this will not impact the background. You won't even see it. Okay? So just kind of be mindful of that. It's just because this black cardstock has that suede finish, you won't see it. Okay, now we're going to put this back. Perfect. Put this back in. So here's what you need to remember about frosted crystal. So frosted crystal is an embossing powder that has a matte frosted texture when it initially melts. It is still an embossing powder. So what you need to know about embossing powder in general, whether it is a metallic embossing powder, whether it's embossing glaze, all embossing powder is plastic. It is a type of plastic that's ground up into a powder. It sticks to something wet, be that ink or glue, and then when you heat it, you melt the plastic back into liquid, and that's what creates that shiny finish. That includes frosted crystal, but frosted crystal has an additive in it that actually creates that matte frosted texture, but it's still plastic. So if you overheat frosted crystal, you're going to go from a frosted finish into a shiny, clear embossing powder. If you do that, well, don't do it the next time, or try not to, because it won't be frosted and it won't be textured. Okay, so that's the thing you have to remember. So I'm just going to demo to show you what you're looking for. Okay, I see some stuff about the chat. The chat is available for replay in the Asked and Answered series. So, oh, thanks. So, yeah, so this is the only series on YouTube that I do leave the chat because it is engaging. So yes, you'll be able to come back.
Damn, I got something right.
All right, so here we go. So you can see that it looks white. So as I emboss it, I'm using an embossing gun. I'm moving my embossing gun around over the whole thing. Even though something's not happening yet, I'm always keeping this moving. All right? You can see as I do this, that image is starting to go from white to clear. See that? So I'm not doing traditional embossing where I'm like following a mark. Once it turns clear, don't go back over there. Focus your area where it's not clear. Okay? But still keep it moving, so don't like just point it at one spot. Once you do, I give it one little go around and I'm done. Okay? There is my frosted crystal finish. Now I'm going to show you why. I'm going to show you like what happens. I'm going to set that one aside for a second, and let's just take another one so you can see what could happen when things go wrong, because that's the X factor with frosted crystal. When people aren't successful with frosted crystal, it's because you overheat it, and understandably so, because if you don't know that, you're just embossing because it says embossing powder, and you're doing what you do with, well, every other embossing powder you own. Frosted crystal is it's just different. And once you understand that difference, it's easy. Okay. There we go. Tap, tap. But notice that other stuff around, like you didn't see it. It's gone. Okay. Perfect. All right. So this one I'm going to do incorrectly.
Oh, I can do it for you.
There you go. So I'm going to emboss this like I would typically emboss, which is like, you know, kind of following the line, right? Saying, oh, is it melted? Okay, I want to make sure it's melted. Okay, move on. Because that's what we do, right? We want to make sure that everything is super melted. It's important. But on this particular one, when we do that, it's going to change how this powder reacts. Just want to be fair. Want to make sure the whole thing is melted. Okay, and then we always like go back over it one more time just to make extra special, certain sure. Okay, not making fun, just explaining the obvious of embossing and embossing with frosted crystal.
Someone asked why you used a different heat tool.
Because this is an embossing gun that focuses 340 degrees of heat in a tiny little diameter. This is a craft tool that diffuses the same amount of heat, 340 degrees, but diffuses it. So this is great for drying. You could emboss with this, but it would take forever because you're standing there because it's heating outside. I don't dry ink with this because if I focus this on the ink, it's going to blow around or bubble and blister and all the things. But great question. Okay. So this one, our frosted crystal is, well, it's not frosted. It's shiny. It's just shiny embossing powder now, whereas the other one is frosted. See the difference? That's the difference. So when you overheat frosted crystal, it will turn shiny, and that's when you know you overheated it. So with frosted crystal, once it turns clear, it's done, which is weird because your brain is saying, well, it's not really melted yet, so I need to go. Nope, it is. It's a different kind of powder, okay? It doesn't mean this is bad. It just means it's not going to work for this technique that I'm going to show you because we need the grit, the texture. So next we're going to take school chalk. We're going to very gently just drag it over the image. We're going to let that chalk hit the top of our embossed thing. So it's going to be really important to know that I'm not rubbing really hard. You can see it's just kind of skippity. And that's where the chalk is grabbing onto that frosted crystal. And you could go in different directions, which I will in a second. Then you're going to take just dry hand. You could take a brush. You could take whatever you want to do on this. And then you just kind of like start wiping it off. So this is where I kind of think old school chalkboard, right? Everything's going in different directions. The white sticks to the frosted crystal. You could be done at this point. Not for me. I like to go in and just start adding then the details. So now I'll just add little sketch marks around it. Okay. Move that around. Then if I feel I have too much white in certain areas, I can go in with just a damp paper towel, just a little bit of water. Again, not a baby wipe. And the same way, like, remember if you were going to clean like a chalkboard, you know how you would clean it by like wiping it off with something wet? I do that as well. And that's going to take off some chalk, but it's also going to bring some of that black back. And then I'll go again. And just, because the base, the foundation is already done. It's just now we're letting the chalk really create that highlight. And you don't need to fix it. You don't, I mean, it's not going to come off unless you licked it, but you don't need to spray it because that's just going to totally defeat the whole purpose of the chalkboard. And I just like to add, you know, maybe you want to add like little extra lines or, you know, 1, 2, 3 or whatever you want. But that's it. That's the finish. And it's just cool. It's a neat effect with frosted crystal. So would colored chalk show that color? Yes, because it's colored chalk. So absolutely. If a colored chalk shows up on a chalkboard, it would show on that. Just make sure that it's school chalk versus like, because a lot of colored chalks in a, like a palette, they're not the same as just chalk. They're actually more pigments, and those pigments won't give you this dusty look. So very cool. I just think it's fun. I love the technique. It's easy, it's simple, but it's just about kind of creating the whole idea of, and it's perfect for blueprint stamps just because you have that sketch look. All right, so that was frosted crystal. All right, love it, super fun. All right, nice. All right, so how do we do, Mario? I think I kind of, I think I covered just about everything. It is pretty easy. I mean, we brought in everything that was drying. Oh, would you mind? Can you bring that in, please? Sure. Thanks. While you're bringing that in, I'm just going to spray this one down because I love it. Okay, so let me find, let's see on this one. I think let's just do something really, I think I want to go kind of creamy dreamy on this. Let's just see what we got. So we're gonna do a little oxide spray because that's just gonna give me this like cool patina vibe. Then we'll also do a little bit of purple. All right. Frosted crystal is not sparkly. Remember, it's a matte finish. So there's no sparkle on frosted crystal. I mean, I guess the name is a little deceiving because we say crystal, and crystal is usually kind of sparkly. Thanks. Sure. All right. So here I'm just going to move this. He brought me in that one we did embossing glaze on. So, but figured while we were doing that, I just want to just move this around. Look, kind of create like a cool little creepy Halloween sky. Let's try that. Okay. Was there something in the beginning that someone asked and you said you do it? Yeah, just did it. How cool is that, right? That's the beauty of the chat. That was the frosted crystal that they asked, and I just did it. All right, I'm going to splatter some water on here. We'll get to the other one. Cool. Yeah, villainous potion. You're absolutely right, Leah. It's like that color is just, wow. It is to be feared, hence villainous. It is like, It is a sinister purple. It's great, but man, if you just go nuts with it, it is so dark. It's kind of hard to control, but that's why I wanted to throw it in with a little bit of oxide. It's just fun to play with textures, especially black. Like, I have to say, I don't use black paste much, but this time of year, like when you're doing, if you're into Halloween stuff and you're doing all the getting your creep on, it's pretty great. So like spritz, even though they're stored, like this is the storage tin, I have them stored like upright. I have them slid on the bookcase. And then when I go to use it, I lay the tin flat. That's why we designed the tin this way, because when you go to use them, if you can lay them flat to start, it takes this pigment and it brings it along this side, which makes them way easier to shake. So I guess you would say that I did this storage more for usability than, I guess, storing. So, all right, I'm just gonna throw in some, ooh, let's do a little bit of this, a little cracked. Okay. So Shirley said, question Snowflake. Is that that's the start and the end of the question? Snowflake. Yes, Snowflake is a new glitter mica mix. Very cool. Talk about how you glue it, if that's the question. Not sure. How do you know when frosted crystals heat emboss correctly when using white cardstock? It would still change from the white that it looks. It's a great question. The white that it looks to when you emboss it. So it actually does change. The same way like when you're using clear, you can tell that it like almost goes on white when it's still powdery and then becomes more translucent. I would say the same thing applies for working on white cardstock. All right, there we go. A little weathered wood here. Yeah, this is just, I just want to get some stuff on here. Okay, I think that's good. A little bit more water. All right, I think what I'm going to do then is probably just go in do a little fossilized at the end. Okay, let's try this. Oh, how to use Snowflake. Gotcha, there we go. I understand that question, Shirley. So how to use Snowflake. Snowflake is great if you're going to use it in a shaker, and if you're going to glue it, I'll bring that back in. I'll ask Mario to hand me that, and I'll just show you some tips on how to glue Snowflake. Because Snowflake is really cool. There's going to be a lot of makes this today as well, so definitely check out social media, because the makers that received Snowflake and Texture Paste Twinkle are posting makes this weekend, so that's going to be fun. Can I get the snowflakes, please? So she's asked how to use it. So I just want to give you some tips on like how we can adhere it. All right. So I'm just going to dry this background. I'm just going to, yeah, it is kind of eerie. It's kind of a little creepy. And let's shake this up. All right. Yeah, thank you. All right, then I'm just going to use the schnozzle, just the end of this one, just to like, because I want just more splatters than, you know, just maybe we're thinking of this as like a weird little starry sky kind of thing, but it's eerie nightfall. Very cool. The snowflake is the same stuff you use in the Christmas collage video. Yes, it is, Trudy. It is the same. It is now available, but in a much bigger jar, which is nice too. Okay, let me just dry this. Look at that. See, look at that background. Isn't that fun? So, you know, I know this, I'll just say the orientation is weird, but like how great is that? Like cut up, then you have some crackle, you have that, and then you have a stamped pumpkin or a witch or whatever on a background. That's the thing to remember also when you're creating is play backgrounds. Oh, funeral hydrangeas, that's cool. Like when you get in background mode, and that's the one thing that I can't really teach is like, I guess your frame of mind. But I know when I first started out, anything I saw was usually a start to finish thing. And again, nothing wrong with that. Never throwing shade. It's just my brain thinks different, where if I try to go like start to finish on something, I probably won't do either one, right? Because I'll end up looking at something and saying, oh, like, oh, I get frustrated because it's not turning out the way I wanted it to, whatever that is. So the beauty of this is I have all these things that then when I'm going to make something, I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'll cut that in die cut, but I wouldn't go through all this trouble from start to finish on a card. But having all of these elements, they're certainly going to give me something to do. All right, I've got to emboss this piece, and then we're going to get into Shirley's snowflake question, and then we can wrap this up. There we go. All right, so this one was the one that we sprinkled or used a little spoon on all the embossing glaze. So this was embossing glaze on wet paste, and we've let the paste dry. If you don't let the paste dry before you emboss it, all of your paste will puff up like a marshmallow and kind of bubble up over the top of it, and not in a good way. Doesn't look good at all. Ooh, I don't want to knock that bowl down. Thanks, Mario.
Sure.
All right. So this is Distress Embossing Glaze. So this is translucent, which is beautiful. So now I'm just going to emboss it. And this one, it's like old school embossing. See, I'm not doing all frosted crystals. So see how bubbly it gets? It means it's not quite totally dry, but I can go with it. But it'll settle out. But it's not quite fully dry. Usually on this one, because we've essentially formed a skin like pudding with our powder, it takes longer to dry and get on the inside, but we'll be all right. You'll see it. It's still really cool. It's a cool technique. And remember, this could be done with any of the paste, with Crackle, with Grit, with Texture, with Translucent, with Opaque, whatever. Okay. Everyone's going to be like on an anti-pudding campaign, I think. Okay. Look at that. So the great thing about this now is that you could ink it. You could put ink over it, you can do a blending brush, you can do whatever, and all these color dots will be resisted. But still textured in a way that like just using embossing powder and a stamp just doesn't achieve. That's cool. Okay. Snowflake. So Snowflake, this is a glitter and mica flake mixture. So this has rock candy, mica flakes, and really fine iridescent glitter. You can see it on my finger, it just sparkles. This is meant for just an additive for holiday makes. Typically when you use this, we use it in a shaker card in the holiday class. You can go back and watch that. The class was totally free from Simon Says Stamp, but we use this in a shaker window. It was cool because the fine glitter created more of a static charge, but the mica flake kind of rock candy mix is just beautiful. It creates a stunning snowy thing. So you can put it on trees. You can put it on, well, all sorts of things. Roy, would you mind in the closet on the left-hand side, third shelf down, second row over, you're going to see a bin of woodland trees. There you go, to your left, third shelf down, right in front. Yep. Can you just grab that, please? Thank you. Make it easy. All right. So glues, as far as what glue you want to use, it's whatever liquid glue you have. You could use glossy accents or collage medium. Thanks.
Right.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Thanks. So I'm just going to see if I've got some trees. Here we go. Okay, here's a tree. Yeah, because like in the past, I've added, like this is just glitter, little rock candy. This one is mica flakes, but now we're going to do one with snowflakes, so we'll be able to really see it. Thanks. Okay. So when it comes to glue, what I would suggest is that you want to use a liquid glue that is going to bond on to the surface because you're putting a lot of dust over the top of it, okay? So for me, when it comes to working with these different elements, I know these do look like candy. Ted said they look like candy, little candy dots. My preference when it comes to this, it really just depends. Most of the time, I'm a glossy accent guy with glitter because if I miss it, I want it to be shiny. But sometimes if I want the glitter to be really chunky or stick, I might go to collage medium matte. So I can't really say like, oh, it's this glue or this glue. It's just, it really depends on what you have and honestly what you want to use. But let's just say you wanted to apply it to something. We'll take a little bit of this. Maybe you have, I don't know, what do I have in my pile of nothingness here? Okay. Maybe you had something that you wanted to just add some of this to. I don't think you would want to add it to something like this, but let's just say you did. You could just take any kind of glue. This is glossy accents to make sure we're ready to go. And you could draw with it. You can scribble it. You can just do whatever you wanted to do. Now, Snowflake is going to be much chunkier than just regular glitter because it's got glitter and mica and all those things. So when you're using it in the jar, I just like to give it a quick little rotation to mix all the stuff in there because it does have all those different particles, and then you can just grab it from your fingers and you just sprinkle it on and you get what you get and you don't throw a fit because you don't know where's the mica, where's the glitter, where's all of that. I don't like to pack it down because glitter is best when it can land in different areas and capture the light in just different ways. But this is like what you would get from Snowflake. So again, I wouldn't use it on something like this because it's very chunky, but that's the easiest way to apply it. So maybe you were doing a card with like a wintry sky. Well, you can paint on glossy accents or paint on collage medium and then just sprinkle this on and you'll have that wonderful snowy, iridescent-y look, okay? But Snowflake really could be used on something dimensional, and I think that's where this holiday season it's going to be super magical to have this. So I'm going to get just a bigger bit of paper because that's really what I wanted to kind of catch the snowflakes. And then as far as the glue for this one, I'm probably going to go with collage medium because I need to add a lot of it. But again, it could be either one. Maybe I could do glossy accents. Oh my gosh. Oh, thank goodness.
You need that?
It was just a spray bottle. No, I'm good. Whew, that would have been horrible. I thought, really, at first I thought it was a jar of snowflakes and I was like, we're moving out. That's it. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to take some collage medium because I want snowflakes on this tree to go on really thick. So I'm just going to dab this on. If you're putting this on a bottle brush tree, don't rub your finger along the bottle brush tree because it'll become a splatter brush and all this glue that you're applying is going to splatter everywhere. I guess the reason I'm choosing collage medium to do this also is collage medium is wetter. So it's just going to stay wet longer to probably grab more glue. But like I said, you can use whatever is going to work for you. Okay. So I'm just going around, just making sure I've got enough glue. I'm going to clean that off my fingers while it's wet. Perfect. Cover that up. And then there we go. Just dump those snowflakes because they can all go back. Take that tree, little tappity tap, because we got snow, I mean, really in all the branches, but we're just going to kind of let it sit. And this is what you're going to, I mean, it still has to dry, but this is the magic of snowflakes. You're going to have all these big kind of fragment pieces of the mica. When it dries, you're going to see all the iridescence of the glitter. And, oh, see, there's a little spot here. It didn't have any. You can just keep applying it. And you can do a second layer after this dries as well. You can just go on and add that. Isn't that funny? A bottle brush tree, when it gets wet with like glue, you see how it like the tree almost grows? It's so weird how it does that. Because it was perfect before, and then it's like, hey, here I am. Then you could just trim a tree. But yeah, that's perfect. It's beautiful snow. That's why we did it. It's because you could say, well, I have mica and I have glitter and I can mix it myself. Yes, you can. But then you need to add some iridescent glitter to it because it's the iridescence in here that just when it dries, I'm telling you, that twinkle is wild. It is so beautiful and it replicates snow unlike anything else. So if you wanted something textural even, you could take grit paste snowfall. So let's just say you were doing a card and we had a whatever. Here's some snowfall. You had a card, you were doing a stencil, or you were just going to apply this. And you just applied some snowfall. So see how it looks like snow? It's just kind of gritty. Then you could take some snowflake and put it over snowfall while it's wet, because now you have a beautiful white undertone base, and then you're going to have like fluffy, textural, snowy, sparkly hills. That's
freaking awesome.
It is cool. So you can use snowfall grit paste with snowflakes. I mean, there's so many snowfall grit paste with snowflakes because it's snowy stuff. It's really fun. I mean, it's a cool thing. But again, both of those products are just, it's seasonal because that's the fun of it. So I absolutely do love it. It is. It's just a cool finish because now we have the texture and the sparkle and the twinkle and all the good. So to me, there's nothing that replicates it better than having snowflakes and snowfall. So really good. Yeah, it is pretty. And I honestly, I can't wait to see the makes on social because I haven't seen those. So shout out to Ranger and all the makers that made for this. I can't wait to see because they're using, I think, snowfall and the new twinkle in their own ways. You know, I've even seen, I think Vicky was doing something rusty with it. I'm like, now that I got to see, like crazy. Can you put anything over the snowflake once it's dried to prevent from having any glitter come off? Not that I know of. Glitter is its own beast, but as long as it's attached to something sticky, you're pretty good. So I would say go heavy on the glue as the base, and then you're pretty good. I know people talk about using hairspray and all sorts of things on it, but I think, you know, that kind of dulls the finish. All right. Did we cover everything? I think we did. Gosh, we have a lot of glitter and a lot of just cool things from swatches to, gosh, you name it. And I really tried to answer those questions.
Yes. A couple of times. So I don't know if I remember it right.
Okay.
Or something like, can you put paste over, can you like layer paste over paste?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, you could put paste over paste, meaning like if you put something down and it dried, can you add another texture over it? Absolutely you can. I just think you have to just remember it's everything in mixed media, everything's the same. Wet on wet blends. So if you put wet paste down and you try to put another wet paste on top, it's going to be wet and it's going to blend and make a mess. But if you wet on dry layers, be that ink, paint, anything. So if it's dry, that's cool. I did see, I'll remind that again because I think that's really cool. I love that in honor of Tim, in honor of the Asked and Answered. And I love when you guys show up for these because they are a little off the cuff. They are a little chaotic, but I love it. But Simon Says Stamp is doing 20% off our Ranger product. So, or Tim Holtz Ranger product. So check your stuff, check your stash of all of those things. Yeah, correct. Do not use sparkle on anything military. That's any card maker knows not to use the glitter, but it's good fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Any last minute questions that I didn't answer? I hope that I did. I appreciate really the questions that you guys ask because I think it is really impactful to always know what you're curious about. I also think conversations like this type of demo kind of creates questions. Did I miss the microglaze piece? No, I didn't do anything with microglaze because microglaze, you just rub it on and it seals, or microglaze could be a resist, but I didn't use microglaze in this one. We focus more on texture. But I think this type of demo, it even kind of engages in conversation that I see in the chat, but also gets you guys thinking about the what ifs. And I hope the whole purpose of this is to get you to then say, I'm going to try this. You may not try everything that you saw, but something that piqued your curiosity might be like, you know what, I'm going to get one of those jars of paste and I'm just going to play around and kind of see what I've learned. The other thing to know about this series is it will, I'm losing my voice already. It will be timestamped. I'll probably wait until about Monday and then the chat will remain because this is the Asked and Answered series. So the chat is here, but the timestamps will be there. And timestamps are important on all of those YouTube videos because if you click the description box of any of my previous videos, you'll see some little arrows that says more. Click it, and then it actually breaks it down by topic and a time, and you can click that little time number and it brings you to that part of the video. So let's say like on Monday, you're like, what was the thing that he did with the glaze and the spoon and all that? There'll be a timestamp for that technique and you can click it and go there. So it is really helpful. It's a little bit more time in there, but it's just a lot of fun.
Did you answer about the alcohol ink? Can you tint snowflakes with alcohol ink? I saw that. You can tint snowflakes with alcohol ink. In fact, let's do it.
Bam. Let's see.
Go Tim.
Okay. Okay. Here, let me just move.
Drink?
Nope, I'm good. Thanks.
Right.
Let me just move this out of the way. Okay. I have a cup. I have a spoon. I have alcohol ink.
Just like that,
All right.
we're back.
Well, I have a lot of stuff on the table we didn't even get to, and that's okay by me. It's all based on what you guys ask. All right, so snowflakes. Let's put some in here. So I'm just putting some in a cup. So again, there's our mixture. And then we're going to use alcohol inks. So we need alcohol ink for this because if you tried to use re-inkers, water-based like we tinted the paste, these are different. This is a solvent ink that is designed for non-porous things like plastic, which is what glitter is. All right, just going to take this. We'll put some of this in here. I'm going to squeeze just a little bit. This is aqua, just kind of a light blue, because I figured if we were going to tint snow, maybe we want it just like, maybe you wanted a light purpley color. And then we're just going to stir it up. So these happen to be little resin mixing cups that Ranger sells. I like them because it's got a tall wall. That's so important. And I like these little flat things that aren't wood. But yeah, we're just going to mix this up. And you want to mix, you want to keep mixing. The thing that you're going to know is that the mica flakes will take more color than the glitter, and rightfully so. Mica flakes are a bigger surface area than the glitter, but I'm going to add a little bit more because I want it a little, but you can see it's already changed its color from there. I would suggest that when you're doing this, just go like I'm doing, a little bit at a time, okay? Because if you just pour so much in there and you get it darker than you want, you can't make it any lighter. Even if blending solution would be a disaster in this, and isopropyl would be as well. So you just want to keep going as you go. And for the questions on microglaze, I think if you type microglaze on the blog, you might get to some videos, but really it's just one of those that you just rub it on and it's done. It's dry. It's just a sealer, but it's a cool
Are the
It's a cool product.
flakes breaking as you mix?
Yes. Well, they're not breaking as brittle because remember this is synthetic, but when I'm going in, I'm actually chopping this because I do want them to be a little smaller, which I like. But no, you can see that there's still mica flakes in there. So if you just went in and kind of just mixed it a little bit more gentle, you wouldn't get any breakage, but I want a little bit of breakage because I think that these flakes start out a pretty big size because they're synthetic. So, all right. So once you're mixed to the point of you being happy with your color mix, I'm happy with this because it's still snow. I don't want it to be yellow snow or blue. You cannot use neon alcohol ink because neon is opaque. I mean, I'm not saying you can't. You could, but would it look good? It would not because neon alcohol inks are opaque. So this is, we want something translucent. So this is our color of just beautiful light blue snowflakes next to white. So it's nice. But there again, you know, would I tint these? I don't know if I would because, I mean, I guess if I was using it, I mean, I don't know. It just depends on what you're doing. You might want this color to go into a shaker card. I think that could be beautiful. But because everything is translucent, you could also just put it over something colorful and get the snow. But then again, it wouldn't be as colorful as this. So there's always options. I do love that. Okay, we did all right. Not bad for a little encore when you asked. Anything else that was asked that I didn't answer? Because I love that. I do try to get all the info out. Okay, scroll on. Let's see, is a Teflon craft mat the same as your nonstick mat on the glass mat? I don't believe so. I can't say it is or isn't. I know that there's a lot of nonstick cooking mats that work just like a craft sheet. Just try it. I think that, you know, some craft sheets have a silicone on the back, like the one that's on the media mat, and some are just that nonstick coating like what Ranger has. It's just the top part, not the silicone part. And then there's silicone mats, which don't have the, I guess, the Teflon part. So I would say try it and see if it works. All right. Yeah, let's see. What's the question? Crypt paste. I mean, I see questions just, you're talking a product and I don't want to be rude, but I don't know what that question means. A Crypt paste question mark. Does Crypt paste exist? Yes. Is it a product? Yes. But if you have a question about Crypt paste, please ask it. And because that's all I've seen is like, okay, Crypt paste demo. Perfect. I understand that. Great. Let's go over.
Damn, we're back again.
Well, because I'm just seeing it's like Crypt paste question mark. I'm like, yeah, it exists. Okay, Crypt paste. So Grit paste Crypt is kind of a, let's get some of this glitter stuff out.
You give me anything, I'll take it.
Ah, thanks. Okay. I'll just hand you this. We'll kind of keep those glitters separate.
Got it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, and then let's see, what could do I have anything in my little drawers of trinkets close by without you getting something? Yeah, I do. It could be a lantern, I have that, and maybe it could even be a keyhole. Could be something like that. So Crypt paste can really be used on anything. Typically it's great for Halloween because it's pretty amazing when you use it. So Crypt paste starts out like this. It's kind of a greenish gray, gritty paste. But remember, having a swatch is important. So when it dries, this is what you get. So this turns into this. So it is more of like a yellowy, crypty, just not so, I guess, bluish, if you will. All right. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this paste. I'll just apply it onto the glass for now. It could be wax paper, it could be whatever. And you could use a brush for all of this. When I use Grit paste Crypt, I like it to be kind of, I don't know, just more textural. I don't typically put it through a stencil just because it's more for accent, but you absolutely could. I mean, it would be just as cool. But if you're going to use it to make things kind of gritty and grimy like this keyhole, you would just apply it with your finger and then just kind of dab it around. So see that little nuggety bit? Keep in mind, this is going to dry translucent. So while it looks like you kind of, put some frosting on there, when this dries translucent on there, it just looks like this dirty, dark, grungy grit stuff. And like I said before, earlier in this live, there are great projects and tutorials already out there that will show you this technique and the finished result. I know a lot of makers that did stuff for Halloween. I know Tammy B does a lot of grit paste. I know Zoe Hillman used a lot of Crypt paste. So you could just go and check out their blogs and see what they did with it, because it works great on tombstones. I know Vicki Evans, that crazy chick, she uses it. And like I said, she sprays it with water and creates like a rust effect. But this is really how I apply it, where I just see where it's just kind of skipping out. I don't even put it all the same thickness, because that little bit will bond to this metal. That's what's very cool about working with this, is that it bonds to whatever you apply it to. Even if you put it on glass, Crypt paste will stick to glass. When we talked about glass, I mean, and we're not talking glass where you can throw it in the dishwasher, but glass for crafting. It does. So this is really how I use. Yeah, exactly. I'll work that. And then you just let it dry. That's, again, one of those things that I don't heat up. But if you wanted, let's say you were creating a, let's see, I know I've got something over here. You should see my stencils. No, I'm good. Thank you, though. Here we go. Let's say you had a cobblestone or a brick stencil, okay? Crypt paste is great for that. So this has nothing to do with Halloween. Maybe you were going to do something for, I don't know, a spring card or whatever you were doing as a background. This is a great paste for that, because it's going to be a really cool cobblestone finish, because it's got those little flecks in there. So I'm just going to place that down. Let's just go right through this stencil. This stencil is 0.86 before I throw it in the water.
Where do you go with the numbers?
Well, because as soon as I throw in the water is when it's like, what number was that? There we go. And I'll hold this up so you can really see, because in the jar, it is hard to see all the coolness that's inside. It's pretty great. Let me just hold this up. So see how we've got all those little flecks in there, and they show up even better, but we'll take this off and we'll let this dry. And now we're going to have a really cool kind of cobblestone, and it will dry and have this texture on this background. It's really cool. So this could be like for a fireplace at Christmas. This could be for a garden walkway. I mean, there's so many things that you can do with this paste, but it works exactly the same as all the other paste. You take it out with a palette knife and you apply it. But in the sense of adding it to metals and stuff, that's why it was really designed for Crypt paste, because of just how cool it is.
Diane wanted to know,
you can tint this like you can tint every other paste. It just depends on what color. So let's say we wanted this to be more mossy. Let's see, do I have something? I don't really have that color, but we'll try it. Because it already has a grayish tint, like, could you turn it pink? No, because pink and yellow is going to make brown. But you can make it greener or more yellow or more. So this happens to be bundled sage. So let's see if that does anything to it. But yes, it is tintable. Let's see, do I have, I need a piece of, can you hand me a piece of wax paper, please? It's right down the very bottom. Thanks, Mario. Let's see. Thanks. All right. Let's see what bundled sage will do to this. See if it kind of, you don't need to use collage media when applying it to me. Is that a question? Maybe they're just answering someone. Okay, I'm just mixing. So this is bundled sage. Let's see if this turns this in. Oh gosh, this is gonna be a cool color. This is actually gonna turn it even greener. This is a good one. Probably if you want to, I think crushed olive would also be really cool in this. But yeah, look at that bundled sage. That's nice sludge. But you see, like, this paste, I only added a drop of re-inker, and can you see how the viscosity has already changed? So when you're tinting, I'll say the specialty paste, that's a good way to describe it, like Crypt and even Glow, you just want to be mindful of how much colorant you're adding, because if you add too much colorant, like a spray stain or something like that, you will change the viscosity from a paste to chewing gum. This is still going to be fine, and it'll still be fine through a stencil or on something like that, but just kind of be aware of that.
I think that's a question, but didn't you just open the paste and use it on the metal?
Yes.
Because it says, question, do we need to use collage medium on the metal? But you didn't.
No, and I mentioned that when I talked about collage medium, that applied to Crackle. That was when we were talking about applying Crackle to glass or metal. But yeah, the other paste, you can go right to the surface. It's just it's just the Crackle one, because The Crackle is just a different medium, and so it needs a toothy surface. All these other ones can, whether it's grit or texture or translucent, can go right on any surface. It's Crackle that if you wanted to put it on a slick surface, you need to provide tooth, which would be Collage medium or gesso. So hopefully that cleared it up. All right.
She said thank you, so.
Sure. Happy to help. Okay. There we go. Now I'll switch back and we can wrap this up. That was good fun. I love really that it's like kind of sparking your brain. Swatches, really, I can't, especially on mediums. I know that people love, when it comes to working with inks and paints, love swatching colors. I do too. I think for me, it's on texture, like you gotta see it. You have to see it to just remember it, because even when you're looking at it in the jar, you like, I'll just say like the new Twinkle or Sparkle, it doesn't look like anything. There's no, like it doesn't even look glittery in the jar. It just looks like a bunch of yogurt with some dirt in it, to be honest. It's when you apply it and it dries and you're like, oh my gosh, like that's magic. Having a little swatch, big or small, is what I recommend for any textures that you own from any brand, because seeing it dry is where the magic is. It's not so much in the jar of it, because in the jar of it, it's just goo. It's always designed by the effect it achieves once it dries. So keep that in mind when you're doing it, and jot yourself little notes too. Like for those that were asking about, Collage medium Crackle versus this, that would go, if you want to remind yourself that, you would put that on the back of, say, your Crackle swatch, like if applying to metal or glass, base coat with Collage medium. But if it's not on everything else, you don't have to sweat it. So there you go. I hope you had fun. I had a good time. Thanks, Mario, for pointing out all the questions. Thanks to all of you for showing up and asking the questions. I'll try to make sense of this the best I can. Again, following this on timholtz.com, even if you go to the previous Asked and Answered there, if you go to actually my website and click on that, which I know a lot of people just kind of live in the YouTube space, which is fine, but you miss kind of the follow-up blog post, which I typically do on like the Monday after all of my lives. And if you scroll down beyond the YouTube video, there's all these little thumbnails. They're just pictures. They're not clickable. They're not expandable. They're not zoomable. But what they are is they're little thumbnail reminders of what I did in that video. Even if it's makes for like the previous ones, like when we just did Sizzix, like if you're like, where was that thing with the make? It's there to remind you of like, oh, that's what's in the video. So I do a lot of things because I do them for you, but I have to be honest, I do them for myself because I can't remember either of like, what video did I do the thing with the thing? And so after this, I will take each of these crazy ideas, pair it up with the product I used it, take a photo, and that will eventually be on the blog post when I blog next week about it. So if you're ever having trouble remembering where you saw something, go to timholtz.com, type in that search bar, click the post, and again, scroll down past the YouTube video and just look at the thumbnails. Like I said, they're not clickable, but they'll trigger me like, that's the chalk technique, that's the video. And then you can go to the video, and then if you go to YouTube, click the timestamp, it all comes together. We need all the help we can get as makers to remember all the things, because yeah, 3 hours like just blew by like that. Who knew?
Yeah, dude.
Like,
You're like,
who knew?
Maybe,
I did tell him maybe an hour and a half. It's exactly what I told him. He goes, what do you think on this one? I go, maybe an hour and a half. Like, it's just textures. I go, what questions could they have? What do I have to say about that? And then here we go. Yeah, it was good fun. So anyway, thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Still great things coming up this month. Don't want to spoil the surprise, but just keep dialed in on social. Instagram is where I always share all the stuff before it happens, but I definitely encourage you to be dialed in, because we've got some great stuff coming up next week, the week after, the week after, the week after. There's stuff happening like every week. 'Tis the season, this guy, I call him. Anyway, thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Appreciate you guys. Bye.